Welcome back to Curse, Code, and Crown, a live play Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition podcast featuring a fully original world and campaign. I am the wizard Cronox, observer of time. Curse, Code, and Crown features our regular voiceover artists and improvisers, Laura Elizabeth as Princess Gwendolyn, Tyler Hewitt as Makka Deathcap, and Ryan LaPlante as Duncan Danno, alongside our dungeon master, the incredible Tom McGee. So get ready for an adventure including thrills, chills, and hope for a brighter tomorrow. It's time for Curse, Code, and Crown!
So where we last left off, our heroes had discovered the burial place of Agatha Drusilla, a witch and a seer who was an expert in the ramblings of Ravan, one of the many sources that speak of prophecies and give some sense of what people were expecting of the possible return of Amalek and Solaris, in this case as represented by Gwendolyn, whose soul is trapped in an enchanted suit of armor. The problem was that the body was missing, and so the team set out to the small town of Stone's Throw, where after some degree of hijinks and investigation, they were able to determine that her body had been dumped in the Bastard Bin, a crypt meant for all the ne'er-do-wells of the small town. After talking to some city watch outside who let them know that there were skeletons that had risen inside and helped them bury their friend, the party investigated only to find that the skeletons were in fact bandits who were using the skeletons as a ruse. After dispatching the bandits, all of you helped the city guard get everything they needed. Duncan deputized one of them as one of his new Dawnbreakers, and the party returned to the cabin where Agatha filled them in on a bit more of the prophecy, as well as pointing them in the direction of a quest, namely to secure the 4 pieces of an amulet that will allow them to pass by the automated defenses of the wall that is meant to keep the people of Orvel away from the rest of the world. So with that in mind, the party set out towards the nearest of the sort of lords of Byproduct, the twin brothers who were the lords of Garbage Town, and that is where we left off. So this time you're approaching Garbage Town the correct way. You've kind of gone the long way around to avoid any more scavenger punch-ups. As you come around the front, you can see there is a sort of a massive structure built over the front gate. It's if you've played any of Borderlands, this is a very common trope in those games where there's kind of a large walkway that's been built over top of a gate to allow sentries to kind of take up position. The sign seems to be in sort of classic Junktown way, made out of sort of various pieces of metal that have been hammered into letters, so it looks a little bit like one of those serial killer letters that gets made of different magazine things. So just in sort of giant letters, it says Garbage Town, and you can see that the gate has been reinforced, so it's not just like a chain link fence that you'd see outside of most junkyards. This is very much a secure location. It may be junk, but it's their junk, goddammit. As you kind of watch from a distance, you can see large mule-drawn carriages leaving the compound from an entrance sort of a bit further to the west of you. And you can see that they're basically, think like 6 mules deep, pulling what look almost like shipping containers, medieval shipping containers. So probably made of wood rather than metal, although that's not true. Most of them are made of metal, but thin metal. And there's like one carriage master sitting on top of each one in the sort of same sort of jumpsuit, orange jumpsuit material you saw inside, just kind of like whipping the mules and getting them to go. And there are about 6 wagons in this train, so a huge amount of cargo is being exported from Garbage Town. And you can see that they're wearing sort of like handkerchief masks, like Wild West bandits, over their faces, and those little goggles that you saw earlier. How do you want to approach the gate, and what's kind of your strategy for this?
How much travel time have we done getting to this front sort of gate of Garbage Town.
It wasn't too long. It was probably an hour or so.
Super close. Okay.
Yeah,
I thought it was like a day's journey or something. Okay, awesome.
No. Because the cottage was so close to the edge, you were lucky enough to be close to the entrance. I'll also say by this point you've managed to have a long rest. Okay. You kind of made camp midway along just to kind of rest up and for Duncan to repack his pistol and everyone to kind of take stock and rest up. Again, there's no... the only ticking clock you currently have is the body.
I'm tracking that as well.
The body and the fact that Orville is like under the control of invaders, which is an ongoing but not immediate.
And also definitely feels like even if you could get back to Orville today, the odds of you being able to retake it are...
Oh no, we're completely fucked. We need an army.
Yeah. So... so you're, if we think about this in kind of like approach terms, you're currently standing sort of a ways away from the entrance, far enough that you're still kind of in the tree line. You haven't made sort of a frontal approach yet. You can see a couple of the scavenger types sort of like walking back and forth on top of the sort of walkway, the sign walkway. One of them has a musket. The other has a big heavy crossbow with like a repeater clip locked into the top. Do we see anybody getting into town, Tom? Like we've seen wagons come out. Have we seen anybody get in? No, you aren't seeing anyone go in right now. You can see sort of as best you can from where you're standing. You can see action inside. So there's definitely people, coming and going, and sort of the routines of Garbage Town seem to be running as you would expect. But no, there's not like anyone showing up right now. That said, if you want to wait for another couple hours, you might be able to ascertain more information.
What are these carts being pulled by?
Mules. So sort of like 6. Think like a classic. Sort of like in a western, like a proper carriage that's going kind of from place to place. So it's like 2 layers of, so it's 6 mules in total. It's like 2. Yeah. Just for sort of like maximum dragging value. Giant wheels on the sides of these carts that are almost like flatbed carts, but with a bit of a lip. And from the strain of the mules and the slow speed, you can tell that these things are very heavy. They are heavily weighed down.
Sire Turtle and Princess, shall we approach the gates as, well, honestly, what we are, which is representatives of Orville looking to parley with the Twin Lords of Garbage Town? Or shall we try to sneak in? Shall we do one of many things? I don't want to strike down anyone who is innocent. And these are technically people who do not know us, and we did shoot those scavengers, which was not great for allegiance purposes.
It seems to me that my appearance seems to cause a great deal of concern every time we meet someone new. Might I change my appearance to something more common? I can only do it for a time, but we could proceed through the gates that way, perhaps.
I would not object to that in concept. If we could find out how these people feel about turtles, that might be good before we show them one.
Very well.
Makka, what would you turn yourself into?
One of those.
And I'll use Wild Shape right now. And turn into a mule.
Amazing.
And this beautiful Sailor Scout transformation sequence will look like all the mushroom caps start to shake and spores shake loose and they cover me, and it's like a cloud that you can't actually even see through is how thick this stuff is. And then basically just a mule walks through the cloud and out and just kind of like trots around you and then like stops and does like a little and the cloud like dissipates and Makka's not there anymore.
Can you speak as a mule there, Sire Turtle?
The mule's head goes side to side, shaking no.
All right, I guess the mule's name is Makka, for we have not discussed another name beforehand.
It's all right. I don't feel like you're going to get there and the guard's going to be like, wait, Makka, that's a turtle name. Mule a turtle. I listened to the first 2 episodes.
I make no assumptions about your world building, Tom. I never
will. Thanks,
Every
man.
cart coming through to the gate, the guard's like, halt! What are the names of your horses?
Stabby Jim. You're good.
Yeah.
All right, Princess, you're still a giant stack of haunted armor.
I don't think I can change my shape.
That's true. Maybe we should get you a cloak or something in future so we can walk up to people without them knowing you're a haunted stack of armor.
Well, I mean, I'm sure people just think that a person's inside.
Sure, I'll take it. I'm imagining we'll just approach then. Is that...
Sure.
Shall we approach, Princess, or is there some way you want to do this?
I think maybe the person who's showing a real face should speak.
All right, so Makka, you're up. Just mule your way in there.
He's a real mule face. Yeah, okay, then we'll go. I'll be taking lead.
All right. So you walk up to the gates, and once you start getting closer, obviously the 2 sentries take note, and one of them aims their rifle down. The guy with the crossbow kind of like rests it on the ledge, and the crossbowman yells, "Hey, you with the mule! What's your deal? What do you want with Garbage Town?"
Hello, friends. My name is Duncan Danno of the Dawnbreakers, and we are a delegation from Orville here to speak with the twin lords of Garbage Town.
Oh, yeah, all right. Like Orville would ever come down here and check us out. And then they both, like, chuckle.
With me, I have a clockwork knight, a sign of the magic of Orville brought down with me. And I gesture to the haunted stack of armor.
Crossbowman's like, that just looks like a person wearing armor. You're not gonna fool me with that. Boo! Boo, you guys!
I think what I do is kind of like, I try to imitate like the robot to show like, I don't know, clockwork stuff.
You gotta perform the robot?
Yeah, exactly.
Your dance moves are impressive, but unconvincing. Gwendolyn, having roboted your way through it, kind of hoping that would do it, possibly throw in some beep boops, I'm a robot. You feel as your sort of intent to prove what you are intensifies, you actually feel your helmet rattle a little bit. And you realize that if your intent is strong enough, you can actually remove pieces of this armor.
Oh. Okay. In that case, I just want to focus all of my focus, all of my willpower into removing my helm and holding it in front of me.
Like, where's that knight's head?
I told you, this is not a normal knight. This is Orwellian magic. It's magic that knows all and sees all in a supervisory capacity.
Oh man, I thought I was a pretty good supervisor. I was wrong. Okay, shit. You better go see the bosses. So he yells a couple things, and you can hear a massive cranking of gears and like a heavy chain, and the gate is slowly pulled aside. And you can see there's a couple of guards waiting inside. One's got like a massive wrench, and the other one is just carrying like a big heavy chain net, and he's just looking at the armor, being like, I don't know, trying to figure out whether his chain net will be strong enough to stop automated undead armor. So the three of you begin to make your way inside.
I put my helm back on.
Cool.
And I would like to whisper in sotto voce to the mule and just be like, Makka, how many hours do you stay a mule before you become a turtle again? Just tap your toe so I know.
Makka clops one hoof and then raises it and then doesn't lower it and then softly puts it down.
Great, we're gonna have to make this meeting short. And then I kind of stride into town cautiously, where I'm not gonna put any weapons in my hands, but at the same time I'm not gonna offer to hand them over.
Cool. So this part of Garbage Town looks a bit like if you've ever seen an airplane graveyard, which are truly spooky and make for great video game levels.
Yeah.
The kind of central, for lack of a better term, the main strip has been set up with various structures constructed out of garbage on either side. And it feels very much like a lot of the towns you visit in one of the Fallout games or something, where it's a combination of kind of metal and found materials clearly hammered together. It honestly looks like a more impressive version of what Stone's Throw was attempting, but also with pick of the litter materials. Gwendolyn, you definitely see some similar wall material to what's in the palace that seems very, very old. There's a sort of a variety of materials. And each of the sort of main places has a very clear, this is a dumb thing to mention, but the signage is very clear here. Everything is very obviously what it is. So there seems to be sort of a general store. You see processing. You see the sewage department. You see transport. And then there seem to be just kind of a couple canteens and that sort of thing. And beyond those, you can see housing things that seem to almost be like small tents, more so than permanent structures. Little sort of shantytown shacks and that sort of thing. And yeah, people are coming and going. A lot of people are wearing the orange jumpsuit type fabric. Other people are just wearing kind of burlap or fairly cheap but durable materials. And you see in these sort of, it's not a fully enclosed building, it's more like sort of a corrugated roof held up by posts with a bunch of desks behind it that says sanitation. You overhear a conversation between two of the scavengers talking about how the latest shipment just went out, and that if, quote, if he sends it back again, I'm going to be pissed. There just seems to be some frustration with the supply chain. You see groups of scavengers dragging materials back. There seem to be other sort of sorting and processing facilities, all that sort of stuff's going on. And then finally you arrive at sort of a central building that, unlike the rest of the sort of junk stuff, has been painted in blue, white, and orange to actually look like it's still made of ramshackle materials, but it actually looks fancy. It's uniform. It's clearly well kept. And the guards kind of gesture for you to enter. There's sort of a hanging curtain, a hanging red curtain that you push aside. And here's the question for you, Makka. Are you going to try and go in as well, or are you going to lurk outside?
I'm going to go in as well. I don't know how the horses work.
You start to nudge your way in, and the chain guard is like, "Oh, hey now, sorry, bud, that there mule can't go in. This is you don't bring a mule inside. What were you, raised in a knot barn?"
Well, I mean, he's a diplomatic mule, so he's intended to carry messages and other items in a way that cannot be searched.
Is that code for bombs? You doing some kind of Trojan mule situation on us?
I mean, it'd be really strange if I was bringing a bomb in to blow myself up along with the target, wouldn't it?
Sounds effective to me, but what do I know? I'm just a garbage guard. Go ahead and roll a persuasion check if you want to try and get the mule.
I do. That is a 21.
Oh my god.
I rolled a 19. It's not even like I'm adding much.
The other guy is like, Stan, you're adhering to the rules is admirable, but if you'd come with me to see that great traveling show Ball Bud, you would understand that there are no rules in diplomacy that say a mule can't be a diplomat. So we should let these people in. They seem very nice and highly persuasive, almost unreasonably persuasive for the level they are. And Stan kind of sighs, and he's like, I'll never live down missing that play. And then the two of them gesture for you to go inside. And Makka, you're able to trot in unhindered.
Makka, the diplomacy mule.
That's right.
A diplomatic mule. Diplomatic immunity. That's the joke I wanted.
Ooh.
Yep. So you enter into garbage, the sort of like, for lack of a better term, like palace of Garbage Town. To find it's sort of a large central room. You can tell that it's almost more of like if you think about during old campaigns where like the emperor's tent. So there aren't multiple floors. It's just a large sort of workroom, and you're actually astounded to see maps everywhere. There are on all manner of paper that seems to have been scavenged on almost every inch of the walls. And as you kind of quickly look around, you realize that the Lords of Garbage Town have spent an exhaustive amount of time mapping the wastes. So what you kind of perceived as a random hill of garbage, they have managed to quadrant and identify. You can tell there's also seems to be some divination about. It's like they're trying to reverse engineer Orville, and the more Gwendolyn and Duncan you look at it, the more you realize that they're basically trying to reverse engineer which districts are above the garbage pile, so they know what to expect in what area. It's actually an incredibly elaborate process, and it sort of immediately catches your interest. The two brothers turn around to greet you as you enter. They were discussing something to do with kind of what they think is sort of an industrial district. Duncan, you'd recognize it as the docks. And they're two tall bearded guys, and they're wearing variations on the orange jumpsuits, but they fancied them up to look like suits. So it's like still the orange jumpsuit material, but like they've made blazers out of it, and ties, but their shirt is also made of the material, so they're one color.
It's like an all-denim tuxedo kind of thing?
Yeah, but if it was orange, like orange prison jumpsuit material. But they try and look fancy. And one of them has a letter T embroidered on his chest. The other has a letter R. And they speak in a not quite in unison. I'm going to speak kind of in one voice, but I'd like you to imagine they're basically tossing back and forth in that kind of like classic like movie twin, like fantasy twin way. So they're like, greetings, friends, and welcome to Garbage Town. My name is Tyan LeWitt. This is my brother, Ryler LaPlante, and we are thrilled to have you here with us today. So before we go any further, we're going to stay out of spoilers here. We don't want to know why you're here yet. However, we do need to know if you're packing any weapons, and if so, we'd love it if you just put those on the table here. And they look specifically at you, Duncan.
And Duncan will give them a bow, and then he will place his rapier and his pistol on the counter, but he will have done so while also swinging his cape around to hide the fact that he has two daggers sheathed at the small of his back.
And Laura, do you place your blade on the table as well?
I kind of have to. It's not like I can hide this, so yeah. I draw it.
Great.
Place it
they're
down.
like, oh, thank you so much. It's always so much nicer when everyone can be civil. This may be a silly question. Is your mule armed? Also, is this a diplomatic mule or is this a comfort mule?
This is a diplomatic mule, but it is
Understood.
not currently armed in any way.
Okay, that's great. We've had one too many bomb mules in our day, if you know what I mean. So we're going to move right on into spoilers now. Why are you here, and how can we help you?
All right. This is Duncan's weakness is he doesn't negotiate. He's never actually had to do this. He's always just had someone order him to like go there and slap this guy and bring back this thing, or like go there and scare this person. He's never had to like. So he doesn't really know what cards are supposed to be played close to the vest and what aren't. So I think he probably just come in pretty blind. All right. So we have been sent to bring back Orville and save it from the army that has invaded and dragged it away. And to do so, we require your quarter of the amulet that'll get us through the wall. So we have come to see what we must do to claim it.
And they're like, wow, okay, that is literally the most valuable thing either of us own. We're not
But
just gonna
why
hand
is
it
it
up.
valuable?
It's what gives us our status as lords of Byproduct. You know, this. Look, you seem. Wait, are you a haunted suit of armor?
I wouldn't say haunted.
Okay, that's pretty cool. That's good. We don't see that a lot. That's good.
This is Princess Gwendolyn, Kin Solaris of Orville.
Hello. I'm just saying, based on my experience as a princess, don't you just have innate power? Or do you require these amulets to retain your power?
You.
I
Clearly,
mean, you both seem very lordly.
Well,
and
thank
I don't
you.
see any amulets
Both
on
like dust their shoulders off in unison. They say, listen, you clearly haven't been around Byproduct very much. It might be nice and fancy up where you're from, but we literally live under a constant rain of garbage. Although it has stopped lately, which is concerning, and we saw the cloud take Orville, so we're trying to figure out how long we can last with just the garbage you've already dumped on us. Answer seems to be pretty long, but we'll see. Yeah, it's hard to maintain order down here, and it's hard to elevate yourself when you literally rule over a pile of garbage. So no, the amulet is very near and dear to us. However, we do have a rather large problem that we are currently unable to solve. So perhaps we could help each other. That said, you are just three random people, well, two people and a mule, who just randomly stormed in here. So I'm not really sure if you're up to the task. So I'll tell you what, we'll give you a test. You pass the test, then we'll give you a shot to get the amulet. What do you say?
So test, task, amulet.
Yes, that's correct. It's a TTA situation.
All right.
My name is Duncan Danno of the Dawnbreakers, and I was born for tests. What have you got for us?
So they turn and gesture to the maps and say, this is a segment we call Fixing Garbage Town. Now, with our supply route somewhat cut off by Orville having, fucked off to wherever it fucked off to, all of our careful planning organization's been a bit pooched. As the damn thing flew away, it rained garbage in places that there was not garbage before. As a result, we don't actually know what's going on in our own backyard, which is incredibly frustrating. Honestly, we're both pretty stressed about it, and we had a few of our scavengers were murdered the other day by raiders just yesterday, so we're kind of trying to shore up security because we obviously don't want any more of that. Dr. Freeman died. He was our only doctor on staff. It was just in philosophy, but like we liked the prestige of having that guy around. So
a tragic loss, yes.
Yeah, so
yes.
we're in a bit of disarray. So here's what I'm gonna need. And the other guy's like, and what we're gonna need. He's like, right, what we're gonna need. I want you to go out into the garbage fields, pick around a bit, and I want you to come back with the 3 most interesting things you find and show us what we can make with them. Because right now, we're not sure we can keep Garbage Town running in its current state, and I kind of need you to prove us wrong. Plus, you're outsiders, you don't know our systems, you don't know the districts. If you can put together something awesome out of 3 pieces of trash, then maybe there's hope for the whole society. If not, we might be fucked.
I will achieve this goal. For the Dawnbreakers do not fail when they've set out to achieve something. Tom, I would like to review their maps to see how it's synced up to the city above.
Cool. So they're like, oh, okay, welcome to Breakdown. This is where we break down all of the different districts that we think are above Garbage Town. As they start working their way through it, Duncan, you can tell that they're actually wrong. Because what's interesting is they've done a fantastic job of making sense of what's beneath them and trying to ascertain what's above. However, because they can't be certain what's up there, they haven't accounted necessarily for velocity, wind, or frankly what you're kind of aware of, which is the actual processing habits of Orville itself. So, for instance, they've figured out where the docks are because there's a lot of refuse coming from there, but they're also noticing like a lot of sewage from there, so they assume that that's where the sewage plant is. It isn't. All of Orville had plumbing. So there's it's clearly being processed somewhere and then shifted over. So they're just a little bit off. That said, we'll call it the High District, which was sort of where a lot of the lords and ladies lived. They have it kind of in an incorrect zone. However, you think based on these maps and where it was, you kind of know where that would be. And that's likely a place you're going to find a lot of useful trinkets.
Okay, so that's probably the land we want to go in. And do we know which way Orville left? Or if we didn't, I would ask them.
So I'm going to use just north, south, east, west because it's easiest. If we assume that we're at the dead center of the compass in Garbage Town, this isn't strictly speaking true. This is just where, for our own brains...
This is all relative, yeah.
So if Orville was over top, it was always slightly west. Yes. Just by nature of the way wind works and the sort of slight rotation of Gren, it always drifted a little bit west over this landmass. And when the tether was broken, it continued to drift west. Out over the ocean towards the let me just grab my map here. The Bone Spurs, which are a massive series of mountains that I think you could probably the weird thing is you can't really see past the solar wings in Orville, so it's not like you've really had much of a view. I guess you would have at least heard of these. But the Bone Spurs were a series of mountains that erupted out of the ocean on the bequest of the Necrotis and destroyed the Allied fleet. And since then, they've just become mountains that stick out. But they're somewhat unnatural and generally rumored to be haunted as fuck. So it drifted out that way, and... That's what you've got.
Cool. So as the most probably functionally minded of any of us, because I've got the most on the ground experience in Orville of all three, I'd probably show the map to the princess and the mule and just be like, all right, so we're here, and point to where we are in Garbage Town. I'm like, this is the High District, so we probably want to start there. And then we can just kind of journey along that way where Orville went and see kind of what came down. Does that make sense to everyone? I'm taking that as a yes.
Affirmative here too.
All right, twin lords of Garbage Town, Tyler Hewitt and Ryan LaPlante, we will come back with an item that will impress you, and you will learn the reliability of the forces of Orville.
So Tyan and Rylar nod to each other and then nod to you, and you set out on your way.
And I take my weapons.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I also grab my sword, naturally.
Oh man, I was looking forward to screwing you guys over later because you didn't specifically narrate every single thing you did.
Oh man, and I'm glad we don't have to send a bomb mule later. We're all friends. Then we leave.
3 episodes later, this is our bomb mule. So you start to make your way through through Garbage Town, and I think the way we'll do this is I'll take a perception or an investigation check to see kind of what you find. And depending on how well you roll I've got a junk table here that I'm going to roll on. If you roll well, you'll get more junk off the junk table to choose from and to use. If you roll poorly, you might get 1 or nothing.
I'll do an investigation check, just because I think I'll have a pretty good idea of what the lordly people of Orville would have.
Sure. Yep.
So I think I'd be able to kind of like follow the trail, as it were.
Sure. Sounds good.
Tom, feel
Yes.
free to say no to this. But knowing that this is all sort of guesswork, would insight be viable, or would insight not be viable for this?
I would say insight would be viable once you have the items and you're trying to determine which one is of most value, but in terms of actually looking for them, no.
Cool. All right, I will also use perception.
I'll roll perception. Just looking for the most complex looking objects.
Sure.
So I got 23 on investigation.
Okay, awesome.
Nat
I got-
20.
Woo!
Yeah.
I got a 12.
All right. So Ryan, go ahead and roll me 1 D100, please.
31.
31. Okay. You find a square of iron silk sewn by the gear grubs of an ancient society. So this is a material that you've seen, I think, in one of the preserved suits of Dawnbreaker armor from like back in the day. That was incredibly. It was one of the Shield sisters. We'll say it was Kev, and it is like chainmail, but if it was fabric. Like, it's an incredibly lightweight, incredibly strong fabric that is rumored to have been put together by incredible, these sort of incredible subterranean grubs that were able to spin metal into silk. It's an incredibly rare material. You have no idea why it's here. But as you continue to kind of look around the edges, you can see there seems to be a broken frame. And you think maybe someone had it up on their wall.
Okay, and how big is the square, Tom, just for my brain?
It's 1 foot by 1 foot, so not huge, but
enough. Cool.
yeah, enough that it would look cool hanging on a wall. Not enough that you could really make armor out of
An
it.
outfit out of it, yeah.
Yeah, but it's actually a tremendously good find considering your roll.
Shit roll, yeah.
Can it be made hard, like in some way?
It is incredibly hard.
Yeah.
It can't be like made solid, if or at
Okay.
least not in a way that you're aware of.
I'm just like Laura is just reading a book where there's like iron silk and like it's like so we can make it literally like a mask. So
I'm imagining it might be in that realm of like the liquids that work the reverse, where when you hit a liquid hard, it goes solid. Otherwise, it's a liquid. So fabric, but you tag it, and it's got the durability of iron kind of thing.
I will also say that, to your knowledge, it can't be made hard, but also it's an ancient technique. If you found someone who knows more about such things, you might be able to get a slightly different answer. It's just like...
So for us, it's just a very, very durable fabric.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, Duncan, you recognize it enough to know the history of it, but it's more so that you guys don't really know how to work it, right? Like, it would be...
right.
Kind of like if you were from a technologically primitive society and you found a circuit board, you might be aware kind of what it's meant to do, but because you've never built a circuit board, you have no idea how to make that circuit board work.
So you mean like one of us with a circuit board?
Yes, literally one of us with a circuit board.
Cool.
Or like most technology, really. Yeah, cool. So also, the other thing to keep in mind, you're able to scavenge, and again, we're going based on rolls. You'll be able to come back with a few things. It's up to you whether you're going to try and keep anything rather than use it.
Building
in
it
your,
into
in your
whatever
arts
our
and crafts
construct is.
project.
Gotcha.
Cool.
Cool. So, Laura, you had a 21? Or
23.
Damn, son. All right, so go ahead and roll me 3 D100s, please.
Nice. All right. 37. 4. And 93.
It's a good spread.
Yeah.
Okay, keep Can you keep those for me as I scan through?
Yeah.
I have the numbers down as well.
Okay. With Laura, you find a dented white metal goblet that seems to have ancient things written on it in a language you're entirely unfamiliar with. Do you do anything with the goblet? You can sense that there's definitely some kind of enchantment about it.
We're out in the field, right, Tom?
You're like climbing the garbage piles. Yeah, like this is literally just like garbage as far as the eye can see. Like this is very much that horrible like plastic island that floats around in the middle of the ocean. Like it's that level of garbage.
So I'm imagining it's been long enough that Makka is Makka again and not a mule.
Yes, that would be correct.
Cool.
Cool.
All right. Well, given that like my body's pretty ancient, I just kind of want to like touch the writings, like kind of run my hand over it, see if there's anything I can sense.
It doesn't activate, but it also looks, as you kind of reach out with what sort of echoed memory exists in this armor, what to you seems like an ancient, probably forgotten language doesn't feel actually that ancient or that forgotten.
Oh.
You can't read it, but it's there.
Can I give it? I want to give it to Makka. See, Makka,
Sure.
Is this familiar to you?
Makka, you recognize it as Dwarven script.
I can't read Dwarven, but
No, but I
I'll
think you
convey that.
I can read Dwarven.
Okay, then I'll just say like,
It appears to be written in Dwarven.
I'm like, Dwarven? I'm sorry, Sire Turtle. I learned the wrong languages for first contact, but I thought we'd meet dwarves first. I can actually read that, possibly. I'd like to take a look, Tom.
Sure. Go ahead and roll me, I guess, a history check or an insight. One of the two.
That's a 15 for insight.
15? All right. It says, you drink from me until you learn pace.
And then I'll relay that to the group and just be like, I don't know if that means this is a blessing or a curse, but it sounds strange.
So you do have like sort of water and things on you if you want to try and mess with it in any way, shape, or form. We tend to, like on our shows, we tend to skip over the idea of food and rations and all that stuff. Unless it's like, oh, you lost all your gear in a snowstorm, then we can talk about it. But so just as general things to keep in mind, Laura, you obviously don't eat or drink anymore. But for Makka and Duncan, you have like, you know, the usual things you'd be carrying, like probably some
rations,
like rations, canteen, that sort of thing.
All right, yeah, I'll put some water from my canteen into the cup. I'll see what happens.
As soon as you dump some in, you hear muttering in Dwarven, and it's honestly it's pretty exciting. It's hard to understand because, like anyone who's learned a language, hypothetically, but it seems to be muttering like, Jerry, Jerry, shouldn't be filling this cup, Jerry. You know better than that, Jerry. Nope. Remember last time? That was a real bad idea, Jerry. You're gonna you shouldn't be filling me up, Jerry. This is a real bad idea. You're making a bad call here. Think about your home life. Think about your future.
This makes sense to me. All right, so I'll dump the water out of the cup. I'll be like, this is a cup intended for drunkards and those who have fallen by the wayside, to remind them not to just keep drinking all night. It's like a tool for alcoholics.
I see.
I mean, that's just useful in and of itself.
Laura, what was your next roll?
A 4.
Okay. Looking through my charts. You find cool. You find a small silver rod, and it seems to be very intricate. There seems to be a lot of inlay on it. It's broken at the bottom, like it's clearly Like the bottom is kind of dented and has almost you can see some signs of rust. So it clearly wasn't particularly well cared for. But as you pass it between your sort of gauntleted hands, as it rolls from hand to hand, you hear slightly warped but still incredibly beautiful lute music.
Oh.
And when it kind of rolls to a stop, you stop hearing the music.
Is it just like a rod? Are there like finger holes in it?
There aren't any finger holes. It seems to be inscribed with sort of almost like micro abrasions. You're not sure whether it's magical or just incredibly well carved.
How loud is the...
what if I want to like roll it really fast between my hands? What happens?
It speeds up, and it's again slightly warped, like a record that's got bridges in it. So it's kind of like beautiful lute music, but with a bit of like a thing. And then literally, it just stops at one point and then picks up again, and you realize that the chunk that's missing literally means that it eventually won't, like the track doesn't complete, which might be why it was discarded. Although I think here's the thing, I don't know that Gwendolyn would be horrified by this. I feel like Laura as a person would be, but in Orville that actually kind of makes sense. It doesn't really matter how much, given how wealthy everyone was / is, it kind of doesn't matter how much craftsmanship went into it when you could just buy another one.
Right.
Or even if you couldn't, who wants a broken piece of shit in their house that, like, when other fancy fuckers come over, you don't want to be like, oh, here's my broken lute tube.
Right.
How loud is the lute music, Tom?
Not very loud. It's fairly localized. I would say like a Bluetooth speaker that you would hear on a subway, but anytime that happens, it's the entire car that hears it. But think if you and your friends wanted to hear a song, and you all leaned in around a phone because you're polite in public. It's that level. So enough so that all four of you can hear it, or three of you. I'm sorry, because I can see myself. I'm like, there are four people in the party.
Yeah.
So all three of you can hear it, but it's not blaringly loud. It's almost intimate in a way. The distance at which you need to stand in order to hear this.
Cool.
And Laura, what was your other roll?
93.
93. All right. One moment, please. I'm looking at very good tables, but they're all often slightly more useful, or like items that you would actually want to keep. And I'm like, it's supposed to be a junkyard.
Yeah, you need like a good stuff turned to crap table.
Yeah, truly.
Hey, people can throw out good stuff. It's a throwaway society.
I've just already given you a bunch of good stuff. I'm trying to find some shit for you. Okay. I think the last thing you find, Laura, is a wooden a child's rocking horse. But what's odd about it is it seems to have been modified. It was clearly very well crafted, beautifully polished, all that sort of stuff. But now it's got wings and like horns that have been kind of like roughshod glued onto it. And you can see that someone has kind of crudely painted it to look more like a dragon and less like a horse. And
like maybe a child painted it?
100% a child painted it. And the things that have been added to it also seem like a child's modifications. Okay. You kind of, in as much as you can smile, which is more of an idea than an actual gesture, smile to yourself because this is the kind of shit you would have gotten up to as a kid.
Yeah.
But clearly...
Like maybe my doll would have ridden it?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. This is definitely the kind of ride your doll would have had. The issue is that in a land that values expensive trinkets that kind of show status, to the eyes of whoever discarded it, these improvements had ruined it. Because the goal wasn't to have a cool toy, it was to have a fancy, like, a fancy toy that someone paid a lot of money for. Right. Tyler, you rolled a nat 20.
I did.
Oh boy. Go ahead and give me 4 big rolls on that chart, please.
So that is a 9. I'm just going to write this down as well.
Thank you.
85. 82. 34. And the last one, 35.
Okay.
A couple of those very, very close together.
Suspiciously close together.
Okay.
I rolled 5 times. I'm sorry. I don't know why I did
I was just gonna. You know what? I'll let it roll.
34 and 35 can just be the one thing. Like,
Great.
They'll just be 34. Here we go.
34 it is. Fantastic.
I don't know why I did that.
That's all right.
Excitement. That's why.
Yep.
Makka fucking loves rotting garbage, and right now we are in a land of byproduct, creating a news cycle.
Mm-hmm.
Also, like, odd numbers are more satisfying to do when you do them in a row, because it ends on, like, a finish.
You were following comedy rules. It's always 3 or 5.
Yeah.
The rule of 4? Ugh.
Oh, poo-poo, no.
Poo-poo, no.
Okay, Tyler, you find
What do we have here?
all right, so okay, this is fun. You find a in very Storage Wars-esque fashion, you find a very boring box, but something kind of about it catches your attention in a vaguely the clustery way. Occasionally, they'll just kind of bump you in the right direction. So while everyone else is kind of picking through fancy things, you go over and see this damaged box. It looks like it's on top of everything, so you get the sense that it was likely something that fell during the kind of collapse of the interior of Orville rather than something that was actively thrown away. Inside the box, despite the box itself looking very banal, there's a soft red velvet. And in the center of it is a very intricate key that at a glance you recognize to not be human manufacture. It's far too fine. The detailing is far too fine. And you actually notice that it has the mark of the Empire of Numbers on it. The Empire of Numbers is a society that you're aware of that is obsessed with and worships the idea of mathematics and numbers, and is kind of constantly striving for numeric perfection.
Okay.
So you're not quite sure what this key does, but as you pick it up and kind of examine it, you can see that it's almost got, like, it's not a solid key. It's a lot of thin pieces of metal with different edges and that sort of thing. As you pick it up, they all start to sort of move, and you realize that they aren't fixed in any way. They seem to be built to move and shift, each on their own little axis. It looks like this key could probably fit almost any lock, but you're not quite sure what it would do if it went inside one of them.
Okay.
So that was your 9.
Skeleton key, possibly? Okay.
With your 82, you got... you find the remnants of a what looks to be a stone pushcart.
Stone?
Which seems odd because it would seem that the material itself is heavier than what would be on it. But there's definitely a handle, and there's definitely wheels. And as you kind of push it aside, it almost like tumbles over, and you realize that it's actually feather light. That said, it is missing a wheel, which might be why it was discarded.
Missing one wheel?
Yeah, and like missing the corner that wheel would attach to. Like it's missing a chunk on the corner. So it would need to be repaired in some way, shape, or form. Sorry, thanks for your patience on this thing. I just
no problem.
want to make sure we find cool stuff. You find a damaged violin. The bottom part of the body has caved in, and mysteriously the strings are red and almost drip to the touch.
What to the touch?
Drip.
Drip to the touch.
Yeah, like if you sort of pluck one. You see the red kind of, if you've seen anything like dipped in liquid and then like a string dipped in liquid that you then flick, it's that. So it's not like constantly dripping, but it almost seems to be coated with something, even though it feels dry to the touch.
I just want to run my fingers across those strings.
You hear an incredibly, even though you're not plucking a tune, each note is incredibly sad. Each note feels and sounds very, very mournful.
Okay.
And finally, with your 34, you find perhaps the find of the night, a busted mannequin, like a dress mannequin, with a half-finished, very fine gown on it. I mean, to you, you don't really know what it looks like, but Gwendolyn, you can tell this was definitely meant for someone who'd be attending the hierarchical court.
Okay.
That said, there is, you can see where the seams have been let out repeatedly, to a point of just giving up. And it seems that whoever had ordered this had some delusions about their size, and likely continued to send it back in rage until eventually the whoever the seamstress was gave up and tossed it.
Ah, okay.
All right.
So that is what you found.
Can I cast Detect Magic on the key?
Yep. You get the sense that there is an enchantment on it. It seems to be an enchantment of locking.
An enchantment of locking. So it's not a key for unlocking, it's a key for locking.
Yeah.
It doesn't appear that it would open things, it would actually just help to shut them.
It from what you can tell, it can lock any door, but it can't unlock anything.
Okay. That's cool.
So I imagine we all lay out what we found.
Yeah.
And we look at it to figure out what we're going to take back as our...
Yeah. I will also say that if you need, like, sort of, for lack of a better term, connective material, you can have it. It's not like you have to be like, oh, well, we didn't find any, like, boards and nails, so we can't attach anything to anything. You've got free reign of the junkyard, so there might be other stuff you can find. These are just, like, the magic key items that you found, and then everything else you can scrounge as you see fit.
Okay.
All right, so Duncan's worldview is rather limited on what things are useful for because he lives in kind of a blunt world. But, all right, if we look at this, we've got a feather-like cart, we've got a rocking horse, we've got the things that make music both sad and frustrating, and we've got a cop that won't stop judging you. So what if we put this all together and we made like a punishment device called like the Dragon of Despair, and when people have committed crimes, you make them sit on the rocking horse, and as it rocks, it would move that little lute thing. Then maybe we could wrap it in the violin so it sounds sad, and they have to hold a drink that just won't, keeps telling them not to drink it. And then you could just wheel them around town to like show people the like sad shame person.
They would have to learn Dwarven.
I mean, it does sound more annoying than anything else. Like, they don't need to just be like, you should, I don't know about that. I want to pour some, I'm like, what if you drink from the cup? I don't want to try in case there's a curse, but it seems like a punishment. I bet it gets louder.
Yep. So you drink from the cup, and he's just like, oh, Jerry, no, man. You know better than this. You shouldn't have had that drink. What are you doing? We talked about this, Jerry. Real disappointed in you.
Okay,
now you're filling.
So here's the thing. The cup is incredibly Jerry-based. But the fact that no one speaks Dwarven means it could sound like it's judging them.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like what you muttered, Ryan, where it's like the tone is, it's like Gregorian hymns. You're like, yeah, I get where you're coming from with your weird Latin.
Does anyone else have any ideas of how we could put these things together? I will also admit some internal bias. I really don't want to give up this square of iron silk because armor's never worked for me as, a majestic duelist. But I'd really love to get a shirt of silk made of something that works like armor. I cannot describe how fantastic that would be.
I'll hold up the key of locking and kind of thinking out loud say,
I wonder if this could be used to assemble something. Creating locks between two pieces and then locking them together. Perhaps this could build any number of things. It is meant to lock something. Any lock, including perhaps a lock that you just make by putting a hole between two things and putting the key in. Perhaps then we could construct almost anything here. Locking pieces together.
I'm interested in this theory. Tom, can I see a wheel anywhere?
Sure. Yep.
Great. I want to try to put a wheel against the cart and see if we can lock a wheel to the cart corner where there's no wheel.
Unfortunately, you kind of like dig a keyhole. You get the sense that part of the enchantment is built around locking mechanisms, so it will need to have a traditional lock mechanism in order to work. I should also point out, if the door is magical, the rules will likely not apply.
Okay.
Now, I mean, we're thinking about this like we're going to follow this like test and task layout that those brothers set forth, but we've got this key. Can't we just put them in a room and lock them in and then steal the amulet? It's just a thought.
Princess,
We don't know where the amulet is, and we don't know if we'll ever be able to let them out if they even tell us. But
what if we
then
lock it
again,
in with them and then we physically can't get it because we can't unlock the door?
It's a real House of Usher situation. You just lock them in, you're like, well, I guess that's it.
Also, Princess, we need allies. You need to be able to lead people, and if we wander around betraying even the humans, how is anyone else supposed to trust us?
I'm just sharing my ideas, that's all.
Okay, well, I'm glad you shared it, but let's try to put betrayal at least like 10 items down a list before. Like, I won't rule it out, but I don't want to start there. What if we just give them the key and say it's a key to the city of Orville, and when it's reconquered, they'd be welcome at court?
that seems misleading.
But if the princess declares it to be true, then this is the key to the city of Orville, and they would be welcome when we take it back.
Well,
Perhaps
that sounds
they-
an awful
they-
lot like human affairs, and I don't want to judge. But if they use the key to Orville, they'll end up locking themselves out.
Well, I mean, the city doesn't literally have like a door they could use it for. It's a ceremonial. You know what? You're not entirely wrong.
I think as you continue to kind of run through your options, ultimately the two that you keep coming back to are putting together the Dragon of Despair or betraying them. These seem to be the two most viable options, which also aren't mutually exclusive. You could deliver the thing, and if they hate it, you could still lock them in a closet. I will also point out, it hadn't occurred to me how often you could lock people in closets with this. I love it. It's just like a one-stop shop for hijinks. All right, I think, hey, Mayor, come here. There's a hanging tree in this closet I want you to see.
All right, let's build a Dragon of Despair. Yeah, let's see what we can do there, Tom.
Okay, so you put it together to the best of your abilities. Do you want to try and repair the wheel?
Yeah, because we need them to be able to wheel people around with it.
Okay, so go ahead and roll me an investigation check. Tyler, I'm going to give you advantage because you rolled a 20 last time. And I think, weirdly, you're getting the sense that even though this is all non-organic, or I mean mostly non-organic, there's some wood, the cluster... This does seem in a weird way to be part of a cycle, and so you're feeling slightly attuned to how this all works.
Same basic principle.
Yeah, as he's doing that, you can see, kind of as you continue to look around, there are more mule carts being packed at distance, and you can see kind of a large, flat facility with big chimneys that you just get like a faint whiff of sewage on the air, and you figure that's probably the sewage treatment plant. Tyler, what did you roll?
My highest roll is a 14.
14? Okay, so you find you do find a wheel, but it is larger. Like the others are sort of cartwheel, like push cart wheels that'd be under. This is definitely like a fix it to the side. It's slightly larger, so it's at a slight tilt. But honestly, for making a device meant to just irk people,
oh, good! It'll make sitting so much more
having to like
uncomfortable.
sit at that like Batman 66 angle of like, oh, I don't like this at all.
That's great anyway, because one large wheel means that they will just be carried around in a circle, and so it's perfect for just showing them off in a shame circle of like, look what this fool did.
My friends and I have an occasional game we slip into called like minor punishments, where it's like, I don't want anything truly bad to happen to someone, but like inconveniences of that sort, or like may the audio on your YouTube video always be slightly off. It's like, yeah, those sorts of things. They're just irksome enough to be like, okay. Great, so you construct that, you build like a little cup holder with like an arm restraint, so you have to hold the cup. You wheel it back to Garbage Town.
This is great because we have a demo mannequin as well. They just sit down and be like, this is how it would work.
Laura?
I'm also wondering if like we can gift them with an accurate map.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting.
So that they can, I don't know, if they're looking for particular things, I think that would be more helpful.
Yeah, to help with breakdown, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's great. So you arrive back at the central kind of hub, and Tyan and Rylar meet you, and you can see their eyes kind of light up when they see this thing come in, and Rylar goes, "Ho ho! What's this?"
Gentlemen, allow me to show you the newest and best form of punishment existing in all of the realms of Byproduct. We have here the Dragon of Despair. And he'll like step aside and sweep his cape aside, revealing it. This is the latest in terms of legal and jurisdictional punishment. A lot of people say, there's a criminal, we need to execute them. I mean, that way you limit your population, you have fewer people, there's no chance for redemption, it's not honourable. And what is there other than execution? A lot of people don't have effective ways. Jailing is so expensive. But the Dragon of Despair answers all your needs. Here, they can sit on it, and look, you rock it back and forth, and you just hear like the loop music, and it loops, and it's bad. Also, and you look down, and we've got the violin strings are also under it. So
it
they
like
get
rolls
strung
along the violin strings.
Yeah, so they make like a sad sound of music that also clashes. I'm like, and they can hold the cup of the false king, and I pour water in. It's like, and this cart you can see here, and I just slide it back and forth, and it moves way faster than it should. You can wheel them around, and it self-powers it in a circle. A day on this, and your recalcitrant thief will be another useful part of your city of Garbage Town.
So they look at each other like, all right, hang on, we got to give this a round table score. On a scale of 0 being unmake this garbage gift and 10 being the greatest garbage gift we've ever seen, they look at each other like, what do you give this? And then in unison they're like, 10 out of 10! And they look back at you just full of joy, and they're like, we can't express to you how excited we are about this Dragon of Despair, because our next task for you, and you've clearly proven yourselves highly effective, the next task we have for you might actually involve using this to punish someone. So that's great. Gwendolyn, you see your opportunity as they sort of, they need a minute to like kind of get everything together to set you up for this. You have a minute looking at the maps and them where you figure you could probably more accurately map it for them. However, they seem to have accepted the garbage gift purely based on its own merit. Do you offer this to them in hope of reward, or just because it's something you'd like to do? Or do you say so?
I do. I offer. Yeah, I 100% offer to them. Just anything to give us a leg up in this.
Cool. All right. So they're kind of a little taken aback, but also very grateful that you do this. So you kind of I think between you and Duncan, you quickly just like fix their calculations on the breakdown of where everything is, so that they have a roughly better idea, as well as charting the direction that Orvel went, and kind of just giving a few details about like, this is where the rich people live, they throw away good stuff, blah blah blah.
Yeah. I'm also aware like it does not affect Orvel, and it seems to might be, I don't know, Makka might appreciate it.
Cool. So they're incredibly grateful, and they know you've kind of gone above and beyond, and they've noticed that you're a little, and by this point, like they've seen Makka, and they're a little like freaked out by him, but like they're more excited about the Dragon of Despair. You also notice they are not as taken aback as the people of Stone's Throw were. There doesn't seem to be the same level of superstition here. There's confusion, but not, horror. They kind of dig out a couple of cloaks for you that are clearly kind of were once probably very fine skulking cloaks, and they give them to Makka and to Gwendolyn, and basically they're like, you may have use for these, you may not, but it just seems if you're, as people who live in a mountain of garbage and often have to fight off skulky folks, they often wear stuff like this. And if either of you are trying to be a little less obvious, these might be helpful for you. So here you go. So they give one to each of you. They won't... It's about as bad a disguise, Tyler, as Raph wearing a trench coat and a fedora.
Yep.
But it's something, at least. And Laura, for yours, it feels like with the hood up, you would definitely just seem like someone wearing armor rather than a sentient suit of armor. Honestly, the single biggest giveaway that you're out of place right now is the helm, because it's a war helm, and you're not on the field of battle. You're just like walking around. So this will, with the hood up, at least give you some coverage. Not if you're in a well-lit room, but if, for example, the three of you needed to walk through a town, now you'd be able to do so without...
People won't be able to just see through your arms and stomach.
Yeah.
I'm the guy in Garden State walking through the kitchen with a full...
Yes, 100%. Yeah. People are like, wow, that person's a little overdressed for this. And also that guy just became wallpaper. What?
Sheldon.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Jim Parsons. There we go. I couldn't remember his name.
Young Jim Parsons.
Old Sheldon.
Old Sheldon. Also, good restraint on not calling yourself Sheldon, Tyler. Much appreciated.
No.
So the brothers LaWitt and LaPlante begin to outline their problem, and basically they're like, so here's the deal. There are 4 lords of Byproduct, and each of us controls sort of one of the major sort of districts of Byproduct. We each have our own little fiefdom, and it's each of our jobs to protect them while also dealing well with each other, because obviously things are a bit rough down here, and we need to kind of make do with whatever we can get. The lords of Byproduct generally get along pretty well as long as everyone continues to kind of do their job. But we've been having a problem lately with another one of the lords. His name is Lord Flicker, and he is the Magma Lord. It's his job to deal with waste disposal. As you may have seen, we get a lot of figurative and literal shit down here. And we have no way of disposing of it. There's not anything we could do with it because we're mostly here to salvage the good materials and send them back up topside. So we send all of our stuff to him. There is a deposit, like a small volcanic sort of mountain not too far from here that has a tremendous ability to just make things disappear. So Flicker's job is to make the shit we send him disappear. Lately he's been getting a bit uppity though. As you can imagine, being the Lord of Shit is not exactly a great gig. And when the Lords of Garbage send you their shit, you really kind of feel like you're low on the hierarchical chain. So unlike the Butcher and the Liquid Lord, who are both holding up their ends, Lord Flicker has been sending our shipments, if you will, back to us, and we are running out of storage capacity, and we really don't know what to do. Flicker has 3 sons, any of whom could very easily become the new Magma Lord. We don't know too much about them, but honestly, any of them would be fine. Theoretically, the lords aren't supposed to screw with each other, so we can't make any direct moves against Flicker, but no one knows the 3 of you, and you don't really work for us. You're just kind of your own people. And giant monster things, and armor. I don't know if you're all people or not. We're really confused about this whole situation, but regardless, we need you to deal with Lord Flicker. Ideally, bring him back to us so we can put him on the Dragon of Despair and ride him around so everyone can see what a fucking garbage person he is. And if you can install one of his sons in his place, all the better. But the important thing is that our sweet garbage flow can continue unabated with us having to deal with sewage that we're really not equipped for. So, sorry to give you the shit job, but this is kind of where we're at.
Conflict between lords that is damaging the land falls under the purview of the ruler of Orvale. The princess will solve this conflict for you and bring balance back to the realm of Byproduct.
Excellent.
If I could show an expression on my face, it would just be like kind of my eyes wide, my mouth kind of like a little bit shocked and terrified. Like,
having done enough like mask work, I think it's like your helmet slides back a little bit and tilts a bit, and we get.
Yeah.
I also kind of like to imagine that, similar to I guess Scooby-Doo cartoons I've watched, that none of your movements are smooth. So it's like.
Yeah.
And then the front part of your face guard just hangs, swings open. So I assume from that you accept the quest. Excellent.
Correct.
That is great. We're very happy to be patrons of this and of you. So remember, we didn't send you. We had nothing to do with it. But if you could bring Flicker in line, that would be great. And honestly. And they kind of both look conspiratorially in opposite directions and then inward directions and then both lean in. They're like, plus, truth be told, if you capture Flicker and his amulet just happens to not get passed down to the next ruler, not our problem.
Noted.
So you've got some time to prepare. They've got I'll say they actually have a refrigeration unit on hand for like part of their canteen. So if you want to stow the body, that I assume what are you doing with the body? Did you leave it in the woods? Did you bring it with you?
As far as I know, we left it in the cabin in the woods, unless...
We left it in the cottage that crumbled.
Yeah, so the cottage is gone, but you could have like tucked it away there for like
probably built a cairn over it out of the pieces of the cottage.
Okay.
Would be
Yeah.
my guess. So nothing would like eat it, but we could get to it.
Yeah, great. Okay, cool. So you've got some time to prepare to rest before your journey. Is there anything from Garbage Town that you would want? There is a general store. Everything, like you can get all the sort of standard items you might find on a standard shopping list, with the exception, mentally, keep in mind that they're all like weird improvised versions of the thing. So like, if you're picking up like a shovel, it's a weird shovel that's been hammered together from two other shovels.
Right.
Right.
No regulation goods.
I mean,
I'm
Duncan
sure.
would
I'm
want
sure.
to.
Oh, sorry. Go.
I was just saying, Duncan would want to have conversations in private once we're ready. But if there is a general store, knowing that he found iron silk, he'd just want to go see if there's more. I don't think he actually needs any items other than that. But
Okay, sure.
if there's a supply.
So you go into the store, and there's, you can see that it's definitely like the best things they found. I will also say for 50 gold, you can roll on the chart again, with the understanding that it won't be something bad. But no, there's definitely no other iron silk. This looks again like it was something that a rich person in Orville found and was displaying, but not something that.
Yeah, just a lucky find.
Yeah, and particularly in this region, like not widely available.
They got copper polish.
No, they don't. Oh, actually, can you roll me a persuasion check? You can see them using polish in the back of the store to kind of like shine up things that are ruined, but it's not really for sale per se.
8.
Yeah, so they're...
But I'm a princess!
Whatever you say, your highness. And he goes back to like polishing copper rings. Yeah, so sadly, no copper polish this day.
Maybe later.
It occurs to you that if whatever copper polish they have is likely either salvaged or part of the trade agreement with Orville, but likely, even though it's an incredibly common substance, it's probably incredibly rare for them.
Right.
Because they can't go shopping.
Eh.
Cool. Was there anything else?
Yeah, there's just one thing I've realized that I'm just having trouble visualizing. Are we on the surface of Gren when we're in Garbage Town, or is Garbage Town just like another level down the chain but still in the air?
You're on the level of Gren. So you get the sense that the nation of Byproduct is a dirty secret that Orville doesn't acknowledge. But yes, you're on planet side now, so you are in Gren.
Okay, so it's still a mystery then how humans are down here and not only sequestered up in Orville.
Yeah, I think based on kind of how much you've seen and now that you've talked to them a bit more, the mystery seems a bit clearer, which is Orville couldn't exist without the labor and the labor and toil of people literally underneath them. So it's less mysterious now. You're still within the wall that that your delegation had to pass through.
Gren.
Yeah. But as you noticed, which they wouldn't know, all of the cannons and weapons on the wall face inward. So this is still technically Orville territory because it's within the wall.
Got it.
But the people of Orville are entirely unaware, with the exception of obviously the people who are receiving the shipments of raw material from the down low.
People who don't have to think about it don't think about it.
Yeah, and it's also by construction impossible to see. So there's just literally no way that the people up there would know about it unless they really stop to think, where does my meat come from? Yeah, where's my poop go and where does my meat come from?
Right.
Because there's no livestock in Orville.
Okay.
But there is.
I just think of like an episode of Mad Men where like Don and like his family like go for a picnic and they're all like eating on like a nice picnic table and they go to get up and she just like shakes all the garbage off into the park and then walks away. I'm like, that's Orville.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. It's that squirrel thing where it's like, my house was too messy, so I moved to a clean one. Like, it's... Yeah. Which, again, Gwendolyn, for you is shocking, because you knew that Orville was heavily politicked and certainly not like a utopia, but you didn't have any conception that it went this far.
Yeah.
Because this seems not only unsustainable, but insane.
Right.
Cool. All right, so having loaded up on gear, you all you take your traveling cloaks and the gear you've got, and you set out for the realm of Lord Flicker, aka the Fire Puddle. So as you make your way away from Garbage Town, you realize that you're kind of moving away from the forest as well. And as you head sort of in a bit of a sort of southeasterly direction, you can see in the distance a sort of it's large, it's not tall, but it's almost like a rounded sort of mountain of sort of obsidian rock. So it's not like a traditional like big spiky volcano. It's kind of almost like a massive cairn almost, but it is dark, and you can definitely see there are artificial vents that have been built into it to vent the heat. So rather than having kind of like a big hole in the circle, or circle in the circular hole, coffee work faster.
Caldera.
Thank you. Rather than having a caldera, there are artificial vents that have been built, and the caldera has been stopped up. With kind of a massive metal vent, so you can see that burning in the distance. It's a bit of a hike, and as you sort of make your way through, you for the first time get a sense of the geography of where you are. So you can see the Great Wall kind of in the distance, and it seems to be massive, built in some sort of could be copper, could be brass, but like heavy metal. That has been adorned slightly, so it's not taciturn, but big. And at this range, you can't really make out many more details. It just glints in the sunlight every so often. You can see from here as I said, the sort of low-rise mountain of the fire pond. You can see kind of further east, in the far distance, what seems to be a large factory with sort of massive smokestacks, and to your surprise, there seems to be kind of a swirling bluish pink smoke coming out of the smokestacks. It almost looks like kind of those beautiful paintings where people go real bananas with the colors on cloud. It's vaguely whimsical, which is odd. You catch just kind of a hint on the air from as you look to the north of sort of that awful slaughterhouse stench, and you can see sort of far to the north what look like massive cattle pens. And a huge industrial complex of several buildings with vehicles. You can also see what looks to be the bottom of a large, almost a gondola system or a tram system up into the sky that has clearly been broken by the departure of Orville. But you can still see... think at the bottom of a rather large mountain where they're going to send skiers and tourists up constantly in those like big enclosed, like James Bond fight wire cars. It's that level of system. Whereas Garbage Town was sending up carts, this is clearly a massive shipping and receiving depot. But none of that is of direct interest to you as of yet. But for the first time, you've got a bit of a sense as to where you can go. You approach the mountain, and you can start to smell sulfur and methane, and it's almost overwhelming at this distance. You, as you approach, you find a small stone wall that's been constructed. And you can see there's kind of a cooled magma sludge that's been poured over the sort of entrance to the wall that is cooled to that kind of like dark gray of molten rock. And the sort of scorched into the earth in front of it are the words, Realm of the Magma Lord. No trespassing.
Before we go any further or kind of speak to anyone, Duncan would turn to the princess and say, Princess, there's something that needs to be discussed before we go any further. These people down here, they're all your subjects. All of them. This is Orville. It is
How
not...
do I not know about this?
That...
Surely my father must have known.
Surely he must have.
Surely he must have, and surely he must have been a shite king who is theoretically dead, or taken, or surrendered. Your father never cared to rule. And if you want to learn to... You've been raised to be a princess. You've been raised to be a royal. You've not been raised to rule. And now, you spoke with the witch. You said you wanted to prove yourself capable. Here is the key. These are lords under your land. They are making demands. Garbage Town has said these lords will not take their garbage. The question is, why? You don't have a side in this. You have neutrality. It is your job to find the best thing for all people in both of these realms with an answer. It could be that Lord Flicker is correct, and we have to act on his behalf back at Garbage Town. It could be replacing him with one of his sons is the correct move. It could be that this whole land is doomed, but that's only if you give up and if you fail. So look at the arguments, look at the options, and choose the thing that's best for everyone. It may not be easy, but that is the path to actually ruling. Otherwise, you can go in there and we can bring him back in chains and we can get an amulet. But you will be no queen.
Well, I mean, I should do what's best for everyone. But I'm going to need your counsel through all this.
Well, I'm not like saying that and then I'm going to turn around and go into the
all right.
woods.
I know, it's a lot of pressure on me now.
I'm doing my best to not get mad at you because I'm aware where you came from and who your father was. That pressure's never going to go away. You have an entire land of people in shackles being murdered currently. If you didn't feel pressure, I'd be more worried. What you don't get to do is buckle. Royalty is fine steel or royalty is trash. You've got to decide which one you are. Complaining is not really great for a princess.
Not complaining, just stating a fact.
Angrily. And
we're eventually going to have to have a talk about your need to just rephrase what people are telling you is true to something less true but more convenient.
All right.
Makka,
I get the point.
How are you? This isn't the first of these such squabbles you've seen, nor shall it be the last, I'm sure. But given that you're now kind of in it with them, do you think you would interject with any of this, or are you still kind of figuring out where you sit in these sorts of conversations?
I have an extremely niche frame of reference for these kinds of things because they are basically talking about a human's, like, where they stand in, like, a social construct, which I have not been a part of for a long time.
Right.
But the closest thing I can equate it to, and I'll say this, is
Gwendolyn, a pack's alpha is not determined by birthright or blood. It is determined by the deeds and actions of the alpha. The alpha asserts its authority. And the pack recognizes that and follows. if you are to be alpha of the humans, you will have to show them that you are worthy of being the alpha.
Right. Alpha pack, not really sure what the metaphor is, but I think I get the point.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you just want to sum it up, sort of think of 5 words that'll tie this together for you. Birthright ain't shite. Earn it.
All right, yeah, I've got that.
Have you?
You hear the braying of mules, and as you kind of finish your conversation, you can see just a little ways north of you, the mule carts have all. You can see there's kind of like a shipping and receiving like depot that's been set up. That obviously isn't sort of the main entrance you found. And you can see that all the carts are stopped up at this, and you can hear Garbage Town staff complaining about not being allowed in.
Seems there's some sort of commotion, a holdup of some sort.
Looks like there's a situation that might require some leadership.
Well, I guess this is where we find out why they're not letting anything in. Onward.
So the three of you sort of follow the magma stone wall, which I should say is like a chest-high wall. It's obviously meant as a visual deterrent, not a physical. Like, it's not like a massive. Unlike Garbage Town, which very much has heavy defenses, this is just kind of a. Don't you come in here. You follow the wall to the receiving depot, and you can see that in addition to the recent vehicles that you saw exiting Garbage Town, there are a number of these sort of shipping containers that have been stacked next to the entrance to the depot that are piled pretty high, and you can see that they started out being very orderly and then got increasingly messier. You get the sense that this has been going on long enough now that, whereas first it was like, oh, I'm sure things will sort themselves out. It's like anytime there's a major like shipping crisis and everything's very orderly to begin with, and then people are eventually just like, oh, fuck it, you're not taking my stuff. Well, your problem, goodbye. But they're running out of space, clearly, and you can hear some of the Garbage Town staff being like, I mean, we're running out of crates. If you aren't clearing them out, we can't fill them. And trust me, like, there's still plenty we need to fill. And there's a human who's wearing kind of you know that heavy fabric firefighters wear. That's it's fairly flame retardant and it's just very heavy. So think like basically a firefighter's coat, but without the reflective stripes. In pure gray with kind of a flame patch on each shoulder and a sort of a necklace of sort of a sigil of authority around their neck with the flame on it. And they're wearing a sort of like a heavy mask, metal mask that they flipped up. It's like a welding mask. But with sort of the entire face is visible through the glass panel. They flipped it up, and the lady wearing this is just standing there with her kind of massive arms folded over her chest, going like, "Look, I'll tell you what I told them. We're done. We're done with your shit, and we're done doing this. You guys have been passing the buck for a long time, and it's time for you to clean up your own messes. We're done with it. Lord's orders." So that's the scene you arrive to.
And I think Duncan will step aside, look to the princess, and just sweeping arm gesture to the circumstance.
I kind of step up and kind of put a finger out and say, excuse me, I heard there might be a bit of a situation here. What's going on?
So they all kind of turn and look at you, and the firewoman just rolls her eyes. She's like, well, hello, Mrs. Fancy Pants. Look at this. A knight has deemed to deign us with her presence. How spectacular. Look, we're in the middle of business here, so I don't know what quest you think you're on or what dragon you're hoping to slay, but we really don't have time for this.
I'm just going to stop you right there because I'm not a knight. I'm your princess. So that changes everything, and you should really tell me what's happening.
We don't have a princess. What the hell are you talking about?
A princess of Orvel.
We don't recognize the authority of Orvel. We recognize the authority of the Lord of Bywater. Lord Flicker. And then the Garbage Town people are like, oh, and the Lords of Garbage. Okay. They're clearly outmatched by this firewoman. She's very, very intimidating.
All right. Well, the trouble seems to be over the shit that's produced from Orvel. So, in that case, I am involved. And perhaps we can kind of meet halfway here.
Go ahead and roll me
agreement.
a persuasion check, please.
Oh, persuasion's so bad. 7.
She just kind of shakes her head and she drops her arms to the 2 fire axes that she has hanging from her belt. And she kind of holds them like a cowboy reaching for guns on their hip. And she's like, look, Your Highness, we serve the Magma Lord and no one else, so there's no agreement to be made. We provide the raw materials for Orvel's weapons. We don't need to also mess with its shit. This is ridiculous. We'll have none of it. The Magma Lord is done. We're done. And if all of you aren't off this property in 5 fucking minutes, we're gonna unleash hell. And you can see the Garbage Town people are like pretty nervous about this. This does seem fairly concerning.
Great. I just want to be clear from where Duncan's standing. It's Magma representative, and who else, or is it just her for now? It's threatening on behalf of the kingdom.
It's just her threatening on behalf of the kingdom. You can see there's there's 3 shipments of Garbage Town in the Garbage Town convoy. Each of them has one sort of driver. So the 3 drivers are standing kind of at the gate to the depot that is closed. That said, you can see scorch marks on the earth, kind of outside the depot, and looking around in the field. Think in Kingston, there's Fort Henry, which is like a classic Canadian fort in that there's kind of an exterior wall, bunch of field, and then the fort itself, which is kind of a low-lying fort. It's the same sort of idea here. The actual volcano is, almost is a distance away across a barren grass field, and you can see there are scorch marks kind of throughout the field. But as someone who deals with martial stuff and threats, this isn't there's a reason this wall is so short. Like there are clearly other defenses at work here, because no one would be this intimidated by one person with 2 weapons if it was just her. You can only see her, but you get the sense there might be other stuff afoot.
Cool. Having heard that threat, Duncan, who is probably almost invisible behind the large suit of armor there, just steps out and just starts pacing slightly around the side. So he's revealed, his cape is back, the weapons are kind of displayed, and he's like, I think there's been a little bit of an misunderstanding here. You're talking to royalty, and you're speaking on behalf of a lord who doesn't know royalty is here. Now, if your lord had come up to Orvel, he would receive an audience. There would be a conversation, and it would be a lot more respectful than the tone you've taken here. And if you thought there was a wrong, then you could send a champion who would be faced off with. And if you're the champion, then let's get approval for the duel. Otherwise, I think the princess needs to speak to the lord. And just the whole time he's been doing very cautious but displayed footwork. He's doing all the things that if this lady was a duelist, she would see how capable Duncan could be. And this is an attempt to intimidate.
Sure, go ahead and roll, please.
And I am going to use a swashing point for braggadocio. So there's a lot of just hand movement, the cape, everything there is just ultra threatening and persuasive, which means I have advantage on this roll. Roll the same on 2 dice. All right, that's
There you
fine.
go. There's your roll. Your roll
great.
sound.
I hate this bit so much. Okay, 15 for the intimidation roll.
Okay, so it's enough to have her. She goes from standing very casually with a hand on each axe to kind of switching up her footwork to a more, if you were going to rush her, like, it's not aggressive, but it is active, if that makes any sense.
Yep.
She immediately, it's like the Garbage Town people don't exist anymore. She's just like, oh, so that's how it is, huh? Well, listen, I think you might have a few things backward about how often we're allowed to go visit the up top. But you want to talk to the Lord and meet his champion, you're most welcome. Me, I'm just the door woman. So she moves to one side and kind of grabs a crank with one hand. She actually unhooks the axe with the other. She's not being threatening. She just wants it in hand. And then with her massive arm, she takes a lever that's clearly meant for two and like cranks open the door. The Garbage Town people start getting on their carts with like a look of potential hope, and she just raises the axe kind of head down and points it at him, and she's like, I'm letting in the royals, not you motherfuckers. You stay where you are, or you got a date with old Betty. And she flips it around and points it at them. With that, you're able to enter onto the property. Once you're through, she cranks the gate shut, and you hear the Garbage Town folk begin to unload their cargo into the pile of useless cargo. She stays there, but kind of points you down a path that leads through the loading depot. You can see there are a number of empty crates in here, shipping containers, the insides of which seem to have been burned clean. So there's a constant sort of smell in the air of smoke and of sulfur and of methane. But all of these seem fairly sterile. You can see other people wearing various versions of the firefighter outfits, kind of mostly stacking these things, and they're big and they're heavy, but they aren't. It doesn't look like they're trying to move them out. It looks like they're just kind of trying to get them out of the way. Like, this is very much this operation is done, so fuck you. But this was the switching depot where new crates arrive, old crates are taken out. All of the people you're passing, none of them are as large as the door woman was, but they are all fairly muscular and fairly hearty looking folk. And you can see all of them kind of have a perpetual sheen of sweat across their brows. Most of them don't have the helmets, but you can see a rack of helmets and that sort of thing. There are also water pumps everywhere with buckets for emergencies. Moving through the depot, the path starts sloping downward towards the volcanic base itself. And as you approach it, you notice the grass starts to become brown and dead, and eventually just gives way to sort of dirt and sand and rock. And you realize you're actually, to some extent, climbing down a bit of a cliff. And beyond it, you can see water for the first time. For Gwendolyn and Duncan, you've likely seen water on the horizon, but barely. And it's really just been a blue line. Makka, you actually had to travel the ocean in order to arrive here, so this is nothing new for you. But for the two of you, despite the kind of horrible heavy metal stench of processing in the air, it's a truly breathtaking sight, particularly seen from this angle. That said, to your surprise, you can also see the wall continues into the water, and above it, kind of looping around. But for the first time, you can kind of see the edge at distance. And there seem to be massive cannons that are idle, but if you stare at them long enough, you can actually see they're moving ever so slightly, seemingly, like in modern terms, it's like an automated drone gun, but in ancient terms, it's just whatever enchantment is on them seems to be active. Is there anything? What do you think is? I think both of you come from such different backgrounds. You probably both have very different experiences of seeing the ocean for the first time. Duncan, let's start with you. What does this evoke for Duncan?
It's conflicting because the ocean is beautiful and he's always wanted more of the world, and like this is like a grand adventure that he's always wanted. Like he's always believed in the Dawnbreakers as a force that should be linked with the old world and linked with those people. But at the same time, he thought the wall was for like our shitty king has decided people shouldn't be able to get in, and finding out that it's the rest of the world has turned essentially active guns on humanity is infuriating and so frustrating because it's deserved. And he's here with like no one who actually, like a princess who didn't want to be here, who doesn't know how to rule, who doesn't know how to do any of this. Like the obstacles for his ultimate goal are insurmountable, so the beauty ends up being like tragic and depressing in some ways.
Gwendolyn, how about you?
I think I'm kind of overcome with the sight, and I'm starting to feel like more and more kind of betrayed by my father for not, like my education had nothing to do with the world below. And this is just realizing like, oh my, like there are important things that are happening down here. And there's like, not only that, but there's like a beauty in the world that I wasn't aware of. And like, I'm kind of pissed at my father for like this kind of like isolated false utopia I'm kind of that we've been living in.
So Gwendolyn, I think what happens is as you're kind of dealing with these feelings, you go and sit for a moment on the edge. It's not like a sheer cliff, it's like it's one of the smaller cliffs leading to the edge. This is kind of what mentally I've earmarked as like a Final Fantasy moment, where every so often Final Fantasy actually slows down and takes the time to be like, here's a meaningful character moment about like what's going on with these people. So I think as you're kind of overcome with all of this, you take a moment to just kind of collect yourself. And Duncan, despite everything, your sort of conflicted feelings about how equipped Gwendolyn is for all of this, you see something in the frustration with which she kind of plunks herself down that mirrors your own. And I think for the first time in a long time, you have a bit of a moment of softness towards her, and kind of a memory of back when she was a very willing pupil, and the lessons you were teaching her weren't hard deprogramming lessons. They were kind of hopeful, this is your future lessons. So I think you go over, I don't know, would you sit next to her or would you just stand kind of over her shoulder?
Probably sit. Doesn't make sense to talk to an apprentice from a high position.
Cool. So you kind of sit down next to her. Makka, do you think you would join them, or would you just kind of observe this moment? I don't think it's ever occurred to you that someone wouldn't have seen the ocean, because...
No.
It's weird, even though you're pretty separate from the rest of Tortle society, because you live on islands in the middle of the ocean, it's just a given. Like,
Yep.
it there.
Yeah. Yeah, the ocean is pretty no, I mean, the ocean is always still like a beautiful and magical place or whatever, but it is not why we're here. So it's sort of mundane to me. Them having a reaction to it would probably give me pause, and I would probably be looking more at them than the ocean, just to kind of get a sense of what they're going through.
Cool. So, Duncan, knowing that you've been laying down hard truths, and you're now seeing kind of the princess deal with seemingly some of the same feelings you are, would you say anything, or do you think you would just sit in companionable silence? I don't want to force any, like, arbitrary character choices on you both, but I do want to make sure that we're leaving room kind of in the quest narrative for these kind of moments of reconnection and understanding. So I'll leave it up to the two, or actually Gwendolyn, same question for you. Would you express any of this to Duncan, or is this an internal thing for you?
Yeah, I think he sits down and I just kind of say, like, I don't look at him, but I just kind of like facing forward, just say, Orvel is very small, isn't it?
Yep.
That's it.
So the two of you take a moment to handle the size of the world. Honestly, like, this is a tremendously scary prospect, and obviously for different reasons, but... and then after a moment of kind of breathing what little of the sea air you can, you both kind of, in an unspoken agreement, rise and continue on down the path. So I'm going to, this is a mechanic I'm stealing from Dungeon World. I'm going to build in a mechanic here where as the party develops bonds, you can gain, in Dungeon World's experience, here it's going to be advantage from acting on those bonds. And obviously the two of you have history, but I think something that neither of you anticipated is that the world is larger and stranger and scarier and even more alien than you anticipated. So whenever either of you acts to help the other one in a situation like that, you can possibly earn inspiration as you both wrestle with... And I think, Gwendolyn, even though you're wrestling with it on a personal level, I think you would also recognize, having spent so much time with Duncan, that the most knowledgeable man you have ever met doesn't actually know anything about where you are or what's happening. And even though he's riding you pretty hard about, like, becoming a princess, it's the classic, like, realizing that your parents have fears as well thing, where it's like, oh shit, we're in it now. Garbage Town was familiar enough, but the ocean is spooky. Great. You make your way down towards kind of a plateau overlooking the ocean, and you can actually see kind of protected by a heat-resistant material that seems to be shimmering. It's not. It looks like glass. It's obviously not glass. It's got that kind of I think like it's in a lot of like gift shops and stuff, that it's not quite stained glass, but like kind of a colored oil on water kind of look to it. It warps the image slightly. But anyway, so there's an arch of that built over what seems to actually be a stream of lava. That is of like liquid hot fire that is pouring off the edge of this plateau, running down the length of the cliffs, and then hitting the water and steaming. And you can, as you get closer, hear a constant hiss of the steam as this magma goes. You feel the heat from inside the volcano from where you're standing almost immediately. Duncan, you begin to sweat in a way that normally you don't, unless you're deep in a fight. Laura, you can't sweat anymore, but your armor becomes hot, and it's an uncomfortable sensation. And Makka, you come from a pretty humid climate.
This is like dry heat, though, right?
Yeah.
There's no moisture.
No, it's just a wave of heat, and I imagine as an aquatic creature that would be fairly uncomfortable. So it's an unpleasant sensation. And the three of you come around to what looks like the opening of a massive cave. It seems the edge of this volcano has been sheared off through mining. And inside, you can see kind of the entranceway to the fire pond. You can see a lot more of these sort of firefighters moving around and kind of going about the business of it. Duncan, your eyes immediately light on the amount of steel, raw steel ingots and that sort of thing that are being passed through. And your hand kind of unconsciously drops to your own sword. You never really put too much thought into where the weapons in Orville come from. Orville is a huge manufacturer of weapons, but you always saw the end product, not necessarily, like, the forges weren't full. Like, you would show up in a blacksmith would be like, here's your weapon, sir. They weren't like, hang on a minute, pour the thing, all that sort of stuff. So you can see that there's sort of an administrative area set up. Beyond it is a massive cavern lit by the red light of the fire pond. and you can hear like the sounds of hammers on weapons and all that sort of stuff, and shouts from various people. You can see massive cauldrons of liquid metal being moved around on heavy chain. But it is still a facility, so there's definitely kind of a greeting area to process you before you go any further in. You can see that there are basically some clerks set up who aren't wearing the heavy fire material. They're actually wearing very lightweight clothing, and there is a one kind of dejected-looking teenager, and he's sitting there fanning them. They have like those little green banker visors from like movies, only movies. No
From
bankers
Sting.
ever had. Yeah. They're sitting there in like undershirts and suspenders and taking meticulous notes. You can see the paper is constantly warped by the sweat, and they as you approach a bald man with like a heavy beard that's just kind of constantly dripping, looks up and raises one big bushy eyebrow, and he says, "Oh, visitors, this is unexpected. I don't like unexpected. What brings you to the fire pond?"
We seek an audience with Lord Flicker.
Oh, do you now? And he kind of looks at you, and it's that weird professional, like, doing something weird in a hotel, and all the hotel staff are just like, okay. He doesn't really blink an eye. Says, well, Lord Flicker is very busy today. We're having an inspection of the materials, and he's been stoking the pond, so he's not exactly at liberty. May I ask what this is about? Please don't say it's about the waste disposal. We've made it very clear we're done with that, and I don't want to hear any more about it. Though you don't look like you're from Garbage Town, so that's good at least.
We are a delegation from Orville to speak of many things that concern both our peoples.
Interesting. I thought Lord Flicker was very clear with your previous delegation that the weapons we produce are now for the Magma Lord and for no other. Was that unclear?
No, we're fine with the weapons. Got all the weapons we want. Not a problem. Other things.
Okay.
Duncan is visibly uncomfortable now. Just a second there, friend. And I just want to, like, grab the princess and spin her around and whisper, you just turned down the only way you have to arm the army that could get you back where you're doing.
Yeah, but I'm also trying to get in to see the Lord Flicker. Like,
you are a ruler. Everything you say is now a law as spoken by the ruler of a nation. You have to be very careful for what you commit to. Don't worry, this guy you can sort of go back on a little bit because he's not that important. But if you do that either very publicly or with a ruler, they're going to trap you legally.
all right.
Turn
I
around
don't
and...
even know.
You just don't got to make any commitments. Just get yourself a meeting. And if it comes down to it, I mean, we don't have an army to back us, but at the same time, I'm morally obligated to challenge people to duel for you, so it'll happen. You know, I did it back at the gate. Remember, this is going to be a very hard thing, and I'm aware that you didn't get a whole lot of training in this. You need to learn to talk from a position above people without actually talking down to them. And that's hard.
No.
But right now, an apologetic princess is not going to get us through that door.
All right. So any direction? I mean, you're telling me what I'm not supposed to do. I'm not really quite sure what to do. This wasn't really part of my training. I didn't even know this place existed.
All right, here's the challenge. I can't tell you how to rule the way you would want to rule, and I need you to be able to figure that out. You're a princess. You are going to see the Magma Lord. You don't need to apologize for being here, and you're here to solve the problem. Remember, you're going to make this better for these people, and for Garbage Town, and for everyone. That's what you're here to do. And if someone needs to hit somebody, I'll step in and get it done.
Makka, can you roll me a Constitution save, please?
15.
15. As they're talking back and forth, you pitch forward and heave a bit, and you manage to recover yourself. I don't think they notice necessarily, but it is... you've rarely been in a place that feels so devoid of the cluster.
Yeah, I was thinking about that as you were describing this place.
Yeah, it feels pretty hollow. I'll leave it up to you whether that's the kind of thing Makka would communicate to them. But I just wanted to put that bug in your ear. So, Laura, having received counsel from Duncan, you step forward again to the counter. Something I'd like to point out is I know that as a character build, you're not built with, like, princess, you're built with haunted armor. So I think something I would encourage you to kind of figure out as we go is, like, there are skills like diplomacy and everything else and persuasion and that sort of thing that are very much like a diplomat skill, but you're actually devoid of most of those. So as you continue to look at your skills, kind of following Duncan's counsel, but also keeping in mind his most recent lesson, which is, like, it's up to you to figure out how you would rule. Figure out how you want to use your abilities and what you have in ways that can persuade people rather than worrying. Because I know with D&D, there's always a risk of just, like, it isn't on my sheet, so I can't do it. And I don't want to leave you in that position. So this isn't anything Gwendolyn would do yet, I don't think. But as you continue to become more accustomed to your new self, I think it might be fun to explore, like, what does persuasion look like from the suit of armor? So just keep that in mind as we trundle along.
Right. Cool.
Okay, so you step back up, and the clerk looks back up, and he's like, I'm sorry, is there a problem?
There absolutely is a problem. You see, you mistook my questioning attitude for a weakness, which was a mistake on your part. We are going to see Lord Flicker, and you are going to show us the way.
Huh. So he looks down at his notes, and you can tell that because you don't have an appointment, he's, like, really not sure what to do. His whole life is clerical stuff. But
and then, sorry, I just want. I then place my sword in front of me, and it's just like remove my hand, but my sword keeps hovering, and I kind of move it back and forth. Is it that way? Is it that way? Is it that way? So,
he slowly pushes the papers away. He says, and he takes, like, one delicate finger and just points the sword slightly to the left. He's like, that way, your metal highness. And the three of you begin to head in. Makka, so you've managed to kind of force your way through this, but each step in feels a little bit worse, and fairly claustrophobic. What's kind of going on for him right now?
I think this is a completely novel sensation to him. He has never been this. He's never felt the cluster so distantly. So there's probably a bit of uncertainty and fear creeping in, and I think he doesn't know how to process it. I don't think he's talking about it. I think he's still too stuck in it to be like, guys, I'm experiencing some unfamiliar sensations kind of thing. So he will follow because, like, moving through this might be the only way to get it done, but he's very distracted and concerned by this.
Cool. Duncan, how aware are you of Makka on a kind of minute-to-minute basis?
Probably pretty aware in how he's moving, because at first I would have assumed he's sick, and now I've seen him to be very, like, capable. And I feel like Duncan, in that same way that, like, they talk about in, like, the Bourne movies, where, like, if he's sitting down in a room as a duelist, he's just like, okay, that guy's capable, this guy's an idiot, that guy's drunk.
Yeah.
Like, he might be able to spot if Makka's starting to move weirdly.
Okay, great. So you do notice that Makka is moving with a bit more difficulty. To an untrained eye, it wouldn't... I mean, turtle anatomy is so strange to sort of most humans that it wouldn't be noticeable, but you can see each step is a little heavier, and his movements are a little less fluid. Do you think you would comment on this, or is this the kind of thing you would keep under your hat?
If we've got a stretch where there's nobody around, I'd comment. If we're still within sight, then no.
So you're within sight of people, and like, think of it as very much as like, I've been trying this whole fucking game to come up with a better metaphor for this, but there isn't. It's very much like Dr. Evil's lair in Austin Powers. Like, it's in a volcano, and there are people rushing around, like turning cranks and doing important henchman-y things. So you're basically walking through kind of industrial floor. You can see people carting around raw materials, but also like finished weapons that all look Orwellian in design. That said, they are missing the flourishes. So like your crossguard is probably pretty rad. You recognize the base of your crossguard on these weapons, but the flourishes haven't been added. The way to think of this is kind of like a Tim Hortons, where they just ship you all the frozen shit, and then you put it in the oven, and then you take it out of the oven so everyone can see it, and you're like, fresh bagels! You realize that the goal of the blacksmiths in Orville is to fancy everything up and to make it more presentable, and things like wrap the hilt in leather and like all that stuff. But so all this is going on around you. Weirdly, that does give you space to have a private conversation because there's just a lot of hustle and bustle. And again, you guys are up on the top floor. As you start making your way in, you can see that there's a huge drop, and the sort of fire puddle itself is down low. You can see there are a number of sort of structures set up down there. There's more of that glass. And you can see sort of like a pump system funneling molten lava up and around. You get the sense there are likely, on this level, some forges. And then their waste magma goes out the tube.
All right, so I guess as he's walking, Duncan would like tilt his head forward a little bit so his hat like covers his face so people going by can't see that he's talking to Makka.
Such a good hat.
So good. He's really smart investment on both his and the DM's part. And he'll just say to Makka, Sire Turtle, you are faltering in the way that you walk. I have seen a shift where you've lost some of your, for lack of a better term, fluidic essence. What is going on?
I have never felt so alone in this moment. The cluster is so far and quiet I can barely hear them. Oh, my head is so empty. There is no life in this place, nor is there death or decay. It is something ancient. This all precedes the cluster. All of this magma and rock and the water. I feel unwell and powerless. Please, let us hurry.
And Makka will shakily kind of pick up the pace a bit.
Cool. So, Duncan, do you have any response to that, or would you just kind of log that?
I have follow-up questions I want to ask, but he seems not to want to talk, so I'm going to trust him to not collapse on us without some kind of warning, but I'm going to stay closer to him than I normally would.
Yeah, and earmark that for a later follow-up. Great.
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. So you make your way kind of to the place that the clerk indicated with Gwendolyn's sword, and you find a sort of tall, thin man coming out to greet you. Think kind of a Crispin Glover type. So very angular features. You notice he's wearing very heavy gloves, like you would use to take heavy metal out of a fire, and a sort of a long apron that just honestly makes him look taller. And he kind of steeples his fingers, and he sort of stops you with a cocked head and says, Hello, you must be the delegation from Orville, is that correct?
Indeed, we are.
And he looks at you, and you can see immediately his eyes dart to, like, where there's no you. So I'm imagining, like, in terms of the chest plate, there's not, like, a whole bunch of gaps in your chest. It's not like a magic floating chest plate. But definitely in the elbows and sort of under the armpits. Yeah. So it's a weird thing, but I think honestly the easiest example I can come up with is it's a little bit like someone checking you out. You're starting to get more and more used to seeing someone immediately dart their eyes to the gaps. So he does that, and you see just the faintest like flicker of surprise on his face, and he goes, Is that the armor of a Malakin Solaris?
Oh, you recognize it, do you?
I do. Who are you?
Well, I'm Princess Gwendolyn of Orville, and this is the armor of Amala, and we are one being now.
And he like just shakes his head in sort of like surprise and delight and says, may I examine the craftsmanship?
You may, and I kind of hold out an arm.
Exactly, yeah, and he does like the I'm looking at it. It's almost like a doctor. Like he's like looking at the arm, and he's like, oh, fascinating. It is as they said it was. This is you've truly brought me a tremendous gift here today. The ability to examine this armor up close. I've heard tell of it is honestly as unimpressive and impressive as promised. It truly is copper armor. This is beautiful madness. Thank you. However, I must admit, you have me at a bit of a disadvantage. Last we heard, there was only a King Valdrinkin Solaris of Orville. How do you fit into all of that?
I'm his daughter.
Ah, yes, famous fathers. I know the type. My name is Cinder. I am one of Lord Flicker's sons, his eldest, and master.
And I say, an equal.
Oh, well, thank you. That's kind of you to say. You are a princess inhabiting legendary armor. I'm merely an armorer, but thank you. I am the chief architect of the Warforge here at the Fire Pond. My father is currently busy stoking the pond, but he'll be done shortly. I'm happy to show you somewhere you can wait in the meantime, or if you'd like a tour of the facility, I'd be happy to facilitate that as well. It's rare to have royalty down here, so it would be nice. And your companions are...
This is Duncan. God, what's your last name?
Danno.
Sorry. Duncan Danno of the Dawnbreakers. And this is Makka, Deathcap, of the great Turtle People. Breel? Is that it?
Bleen.
Oh, Bleen. Yes, of Bleen.
Bleen, Your Highness.
Bleen.
It says, fascinating company you keep. Although I'm also accustomed to having grown up here to odd circumstance myself. He looks at you, Ryan, and his eyes immediately light on your bracers. And he says, a Dawnbreaker. So, are your bracers of copper? I understand we've mostly been forging them in gold of late.
Those are not the true Dawnbreaker coppers. If they wear the gold, they're not a real Dawnbreaker.
Oh, wow. There sure are a lot of fake Dawnbreaker orders then, because I tell you, we haven't made copper ones in about 40 years. He looks at your bracers and he's like, actually, sorry, may I?
I'm not taking them off, but you can look.
He looks and he gestures to a small... there's a small imperfection on your right bracer that I think, Ryan, you always just wrote off as part of the smelting process. And he goes, oh, I thought so. I actually made this one. That's my mark. We mark all of our gear down here. We used to have a lot of orders for these, but as I said, it's mostly been gold of late. Have they been treating you well?
Oh, these, yes. Thank you, craftsman.
Excellent. Oh, well, I'm glad. It's It's always fun to get to craft in a different material. Anyway, please, we've talked enough. Come. He leads you. So I'm sorry. I guess I didn't give you time to respond. Do you want to go and wait for the Lord in kind of like a waiting room with refreshment, or do you want a tour?
Please, a tour.
Cool. So he begins to walk you through the facility. He takes you past the forges. He points out his brother Ash, who is just in all the ways that Cinder is slender. Ash is stout. He is he's shaved head. He's got a very, very close cropped sort of goatee, and just kind of a classic Hephaestus type. Just like big dude hammering away at steel. You can actually see one of his hands is he's missing one of his hands, and it is a sort of an iron gauntlet with an intricate claw at the end that he's using very dexterously to manipulate the metal. Even though it isn't articulated, you can see he's worked it in such a way that he can actually handle hot material much easier with this prosthetic that he's built. And Cinder points that out and he's quite proud of it. He helped design it, but it was Ash's idea. And then he sort of brings you further. You can see the old waste facility. Which is almost like, think if the fire pond is the swimming pool, this is the hot tub. So it's basically a circular room with one that kind of has a means of bringing in crates that would then be dumped into the circular pool to melt them down. And the crates would carry on, but it's currently not in operation. There's nothing going on in this room right now. So he kind of brushes past it, being like, "Oh, don't worry too much about that one." And then he finally brings you to a sort of large area down by the actual fire pond itself. And he says, so here's where I'll leave you. Again, my father will be done his task shortly. If you need anything, you can speak to my other brother, Fievel, who is, he used to be called the Poop Smith, because he was the one in charge of the shoveling, as it were. But since we've stopped the waste management system, he now serves drinks. So he'll have some refreshment for you. And I guess he like looks at you, Laura, and goes, and a polish, I suppose, for you. And friend Tortle, you seem you seem a little bit unwell. Can we get you anything? Do you need water? Do you need food? Place to lie down?
Do you have here any sort of organic material? Something from the earth?
I mean, we've harvested many ores from the earth, if that counts. I can show you some of our raw materials.
No.
Is there a garden of some kind?
Oh, no. You'd have to visit the farms for that, but the butcher isn't too into guests, as you know.
I will make do.
Great.
And I'm going to cast Goodberry.
Oh, cool!
Yeah. But in this case,
What?
it'll be flavored as like good toadstool or something.
Amazing. Do you want to talk us through what Goodberry does?
Yeah.
I've never heard of this.
So I'll read out the spell, but I'll also just reflavor it how it would be done with Makka. So up to 10 small mushrooms appear in my hand and are infused with magic for the duration, which is it's instantaneous. A creature can use its action to eat one mushroom. Eating a mushroom restores 1 hit point, and the mushroom provides enough nourishment to sustain a creature for 1 day. They lose their potency if they have not been consumed within 24 hours of the casting of this spell. So what Makka is attempting to do here is, because the area around him is not like a sustainable cyclical ecosystem, he's trying to make himself his own self-contained ecosystem. The spores and funguses do live within and upon him, so he's now going to start consuming them to feed himself, and with this symbiotic relationship, feed them and hopefully create his own cycle.
Yeah, I think
to alleviate some of the weariness that he's feeling.
100%. The second you do that, it's like someone closed a circuit. Like just your whole body relaxes, your shell feels less dry, and you almost gasp for breath because it's in video game terms, it's like you swam too long and then you ran out of air and your health bar was going down. But no, this is your equivalent of putting on like a hazmat suit, really. So you feel much better.
I think it starts with like a single toadstool pinched between two fingers, placed delicately in the mouth, and then just the invigorating feeling, just the other handful just goes, and he just Cookie Monsters it.
Amazing. All right, so you're left for a few minutes in what seems to be kind of an office space of some sort. It's got a large bay window that looks out over the fire pond. You're just like above it a bit. It's kind of like a classic CEO office that overlooks the factory floor kind of thing. And after you've been there for a moment or two, you hear a kind of trembling of glasses. And you turn to see, for lack of a better term, a version of Cinder who was put through the wash cycle a bit too many times and then dried and shrank. So a much kind of smaller, tweakier version of him comes in. He's tried to comb his hair the same way, but it's at slightly odd angles. His sharp features look a little bit hawkish, and you can tell his nose has been broken several times. And he walks in with a trembling tray, and he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I heard there were guests, and it was my job to bring the drinks." And he looks at the three of you, and he's like, "Are you guests?"
Yes.
We are good, sir.
Nailed it in one.
You must be the poop smith.
That's me, Fievel the Poop Smith. Or at least I was. Now I'm Fievel the... Well, I'm still a poop smith at heart. That's what they tell me. So he comes in, and there's just a slight hint of sewage on him, even though he seems to be impeccably dressed. It seems to have almost soaked into his skin.
Like he's pooped himself?
More like, like he pooped himself, or like he's just been rolling around in poop for a while, and it's like I worked as a barista for a while, and it doesn't matter how much you wash your hands, you come home smelling like coffee. It's like that, but instead of coffee, it was poop.
This is great for Makka. Makka's loving this.
Yeah, okay, great. Sure. So he comes... Oh, go ahead, Ryan.
I was going to say, Duncan will step forwards and assist him with the drinks. Because, I mean, Duncan's more dexterous. He also doesn't want to see this get spilled. And Duncan is fully aware that the people who are mistreated or who are ignored are actually the ones who are the most likely to give you real information. So he'll just step forward and say, "Allow me to serve you, Honourable Fievel. We would love to hear about the change in your station and your role and what's led you to us here today. Please sit." I just gesture to sit opposite the princess.
"Oh, thank you, my lord." And he looks around for a princess.
"The princess is inside the suit of armor. If you sit, she'll sit as well."
"Hot diggity damn, that's real cool." And he goes and you can tell he he winces every time he steps. Like one of his feet is currently giving him some trouble. And he less sits and more like inelegantly falls backwards, a little bit like a rag doll, or like Woody from Toy Story falling into a chair. It's just kind of like a flail of arms and legs. And he's like, "Oh, that's much better, thank you."
Yeah, so I'll step forward and give him a drink, and then look to the princess, and look back to him and say, "Princess, perhaps Fievel would be willing to be forthcoming about the situation here in the Fire Kingdom." And then I'll circle over and give Makka a drink as well.
I'm going to institute a weird rule, I think. Because of the way your characters are built, but also narratively the structure of it, I think, Laura, since you are kind of leaning into the idea of Gwendolyn being wise enough to accept advisors, I think I'm going to say, in cases like this, so not like if you're alone in a room, you could do this, but like when you kind of have Makka and Duncan with you and the circumstances allow, I'm going to let you roll persuasion checks off Ryan's stat.
Oh, okay, cool.
if Duncan is actively advising you. So normally I would just be like, roll with advantage. But again, there's a weird narrative mechanical divide that I want to kind of bridge between being a princess in armor. Because, like, having princess stats in armor would also be useless. It'd be like, all right.
Yeah, so this is kind of like if we tag team it, then you get the advantage of the advisor.
And similarly, like if Makka is advising, it's basically like I want to narratively hear kind of. I think I don't need to hear it every time. I think it'd be something to the effect of like, my counselor advises well, blah 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 blah, and then Ryan. I don't know if we should have Ryan roll it since he's got the stat in front of him.
Yeah, or Laura, if you just want to make a note on your sheet, because this is kind of cool, Tom. I actually like this because it's a way to have like a ruler have some benefit from having an advisor, which is you are as smart as the team you bring with you in a lot of ways if they're
100%.
partaking.
Yeah.
Laura, if you're looking for what I can add for you in terms of this, persuasion is +5.
Nice.
And intimidation is +5. And then if you need deception or performance, because Tom, you can make a call whether it's her or whether it's me stepping in. Like, that's easy.
I think
those two.
I think I'd like to keep it to persuasion in this instance because
Sold.
intimidation would have to be either her or you. Because it's not, I think it's something else to be like, if she's like, listen, you don't want to make my friend angry, then it's you rolling the intimidation check. It's more so like for persuasion where it's like, I've been advised, blah, blah, blah. And similarly,
Okay, cool.
Laura, I'll also give you, Tyler, I imagine your nature's probably pretty rad. Is that correct?
It's just +3 because it's intelligence based instead of wisdom.
Right.
But that is one of my. What's it called?
Or would he be able to assist with like
Proficiencies.
insight? With like insight, then would that be something he could with? I don't know.
No, I think I'd like to keep it to a specific because insight is
Cool.
like I felt it. So
Got it.
let's say Laura, you can if it's nature based, you can use Makka's
Yeah.
+3.
Well, my nature is actually +4.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
Just because I've read a lot.
Great.
Then I think I have an understanding of at least how Orville works.
Right.
In terms of like the surface.
Okay. So then what's Makka, in terms of your skills, what do you think your advice would be best suited for Gwendolyn? Or Gwendolyn, you can look at your stats and be like, where am I lacking that he would be best to advise?
Yeah. I have like crap insight, crap perception.
How's your religion?
My religion's good.
Okay, well then let's make it.
I'm good.
Let's make it.
That stuff is all int based, like religion,
Yeah.
nature, and stuff like that. Wisdom
Yeah.
is like insight, perception, those kinds of things. Makka can assist with.
So we will take insight, and I think the argument will be mostly like I think mechanically it will be. It's the Stanley Tucci to Meryl Streep thing, where it's just like Makka leaning in, being like, "I noticed this." So again, this isn't to prevent.
Makka can say what he sees, and Duncan can say what he thinks might be leverage.
And again, this isn't to remove any rules from either you, Tyler, or you, Ryan. It's mostly just I'm realizing in all of these weird diplomatic negotiations where it makes sense for her to be the one talking, it's insane for her to not be able to use your stats. So
agreed.
Still look for insight. Still look for persuasion. And again, this only applies in kind of like if we're doing the Dragon Age Council of War where everyone stands around the table, it's like those scenes, but not like we walked into a store. It's like I'm gonna use his insight. It's like no.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool. All right, Tyler, what's your insight?
Insight. Where'd you go? +3.
Cool. Now, Tom, sorry, just like because I had kind of chosen the skills kind of before I knew like all of like the backstory and everything. So would it make sense to not have nature?
No, I think nature's fine because the idea will be that you've trained your brain on how to understand nature. So if you encounter new nature things, it's less holy shit, what's this, and more like okay, based on what I know, I can make this inference.
Yeah, because I think I have like kind of the investigation ability and maybe like more ability to like draw conclusions.
100%. Honestly,
like take evidence.
It's the kind of thing that archaeologists have to do all the time, which is like I don't necessarily know what this is for, but I do know what this is for, and this could mean that.
Cool.
Yeah, great. Okay, cool. So with all that in mind, yes, Fievel is there. He's got his drink. What would you like to ask him? Or how do you want to try and get him to open up about the state of play?
I think I kind of see this as almost like my younger brother, or who I thought my younger brother was, and kind of a little mistreated.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I kind of want to show. I'm gonna try to show some warmth to him in my, like, you know, cold copper freaking body as much as I can do. And I just want to say, Fievel, good sir, as the son of the Lord, you must have vast knowledge of this place and its history and the future.
Oh, shucks. That's real nice.
Pond.
That's nice to say.
I would love to hear your perspective.
Okay, go ahead and roll me a persuasion check, please.
Right. And nat 20.
Yes.
Oh!
Good thing you had that bonus from Duncan. So the Poopsmith is really quite taken with the fact that you bothered to ask. And you get the sense that no one's really asked him about him, maybe ever. So he says, "Oh well, you know, it's interesting. It's strange times. You know, ever since Father decided to cut off our relationship with Garbage Town, I have kind of been out of a job. It's nice not having to shovel so much poop no more, but that was kind of my thing. I was real good at it, and you know."
Well, why would he have done that, especially if you were obviously so gifted in that area?
Well, he was saying it was getting harder and harder to keep full control of the. He just said it was getting harder to deal with both things. He said he wanted to focus on the weapons of war, so we'd be ready to become the lords of Byproduct ourselves.
I see.
Go ahead and roll me an insight check.
Okay.
Because Makka, I think you noticed that slip, and as someone who speaks incredibly plainly, it's odd for you to watch someone self-edit. And I think it's a clear, like...
It's like, hold on a moment, you were saying something, and then you said something else.
Yeah, I rolled a nat 20.
Again?
Again.
Let's just edit out the part where we're adding our stats here, because she doesn't fucking need it. She doesn't need it.
No, it'll be helpful later.
All right, well, let me explain the history of the world that you don't know and who the villain is and what their weaknesses are. You're really good at this. So he looks like ashamed immediately and horrified, and he actually flinches, expecting a hit from one of you, and then when none falls, he's like, "Okay, yeah, sorry, we're just not supposed to talk about, the flame. We're not supposed to talk about the flame."
And I say, I understand. Take your time. Choose your words. There's no pressure here.
Oh, that's nice.
And I kind of sit down and like I try to sit down in a princessly, like, receiving,
love it. It's definitely
like counsel way. Like I have like I try to put like fold my hands like in my lap with like my ankles crossed.
You just have to like lift your leg up and put it over because armor doesn't work that way.
Tom, is there a lock on the door?
There is.
Wonderful. I'm assuming it doesn't have a way for me to lock it currently.
I mean, if you had a key.
Perfect. Makka, could I borrow your key that you discovered there, sir?
Yes.
And I'll give him the key of locking.
I'll say, wonderful. Fievel, let's keep this conversation just between us so you know that you're safe. I'm going to use a magic key on this door so no one will know what's happening.
A magic key? Boy, howdy. You guys are real cool.
Cool, and then I want to lock us into this room so that no one else can come in while Fievel's confessing.
So you go over to the lock. You can tell it's one of those like old-timey locks where you need a key on both sides. So basically what this means is you can lock it. It can be unlocked from the other side. However, people will have to realize why it's like... There will be... Basically, this isn't going to keep everyone out forever, but it will keep people from just
It'll give us that, like, someone trying to open a door, and we go,
you'll have
stop
enough
talking.
time to close your tabs so it looks like you weren't watching anything, but not much else.
Just want to make sure we all know how this key works.
Yep.
In that we can lock the door. We cannot unlock it with that key.
No, but they can unlock it from the other side. It's fine. We can break down a door.
Okay. Oh my God. Really wear on our welcome fast that way.
What kind of a door is it?
Everyone-
Like a metal
Duncan
door.
has already locked the door.
Yeah, fine, great, good.
Everyone hand me your laptops. You can never leave this room and you are dead.
No, he's smashing my laptop.
You go in and lock the door. The doors are, because, again, I can only really think of a supervillain facility from a James Bond movie. They are those classic, like, sort of like office doors where it's solid door with, like, the window with the anti-break metal cross hatching in it. So they're not sturdy. This is just like a weird office room. It's like the break room for the facility. So yeah, you lock it, you lock the other one, you lock the two back side doors that lead kind of to stairwells. The room is now secure for as long as it would need you to come up with, like, to buy you enough time that no one's gonna, like, what the fuck? So, because you've rolled 2 20s, I think I'm just gonna kind of give you everything, because that kind of makes the most sense.
That's crazy.
Outstanding job, Laura.
Yeah, truly.
Thanks. Thank you, Lords of Probability.
So Fievel, is like, okay, well, now that we've got a bit more time, I understand you're not from here, and you seem really cool. You got magic keys, you got magic armor, you got a giant turtle man. Basically for a couple generations, for a few generations now, actually, the Magma Lord has been able to use the Flame Helm to control the fires here, and that's great. But recently, it's been getting a little unwieldy, and my dad was a little bit concerned that he was using it for too much, and he was. He's always in control. That's very clear. He's always in control, but he was worried that maybe doing 2 things was too much, and he's starting to worry that maybe he might not. The thing that lives inside the fire helm might be getting angry. So. Anyway, look, there he is. And he points out the bay window, and out of the fire pool, or the flame pool, you see suddenly a man burst out of the magma dramatically, and magma drips off him, and he just, like, it's like watching someone leap out of water. And he just seems to, like, hover over the flame, over the magma for a moment. You can see he's wearing... golden gauntlets, and his helmet is kind of a large golden cylinder, with kind of the Knights of Ni, like just a T cross in the center, and above it there is sort of an ever-burning flame, and you can see at the end of his gauntlets there's fire burning on both his hands. And he floats there for a moment. The rest of him, he's wearing like a thin, unlike everyone else, he's wearing like a golden chest plate and sort of golden greaves on his legs. But under that, it's almost like a gold jumpsuit. So very thin material. By everything you understand about physics and heat, he should be dead 80 times over. But as he floats there with the flame coming from his hands and his head, he begins to kind of swirl one hand around, and you can see the magma beneath him slowly begin to turn. And similar to a bender in Avatar, just starts like conducting the waves of magma, and he's like sending them into those cauldrons you saw, and he's kind of like forcing them up through the tubes. You can tell there's actually no mechanics to this. He seems to be doing it sort of with force of will. And then he kind of puts both hands up and over his head and dives back into the magma. And so Fievel's like, you see, he's busy doing that because he wants to focus on weapons. And if he thinks he can probably keep the flame helm under control if it's just doing that. So he
Fievel, sorry to interrupt you. That was your father?
Oh, yeah, that's Lord Flicker. Lord of the Magma Lord. One day, one of my brothers will get to be that. Not me, though.
Why not you?
Well, look at me. I'm a fuck-up.
No.
Well, that's what the mean one always says. But anyway,
who's the mean one?
I can't tell you that, despite your 20s. So Fievel goes on to explain that Lord Flicker is basically like, he doesn't come out and say he's putting together enough weapons to build an army.
Yeah.
But kinda.
We've already kind of pieced that together.
Yeah, totally. And that he's tired of kind of doing the bidding both of Orvel and of the other lords of Byproduct. It's a bit of a Hades complex where it's just like, I got the shitty job, everyone else gets to live large and live up on the land, and I have to like serve everyone in the hot, terrible place.
And you can tell he's a little bit self-obsessed because he's thinking, look at those uppity garbage towners.
100%, 110%, yes. But the other tone you pick up from it, again based on double 20s, is there's a slight hint of desperation to all of this, and it seems like Flicker's concern about losing control of the flame helm is what's perhaps spurring him on, because right now he's incredibly powerful, but if he loses control of the flame helm, that power might dissipate, so he has to act soon. And if he takes over everything else, then he'll have enough power and he'll be secure enough that he won't need it anymore. But anyway, that's the vibe you get. Fievel also doesn't know any of this. He knows just enough around it that you're able to piece it together.
Yeah, he's like painting a picture that excludes the details, but when you look at it, we can see the clear outline of all the details.
And you notice that he's not in any way trying to be duplicitous. He just fucking doesn't know. But you also get more and more hints of like the mean one abusing him, and you get the sense that he's had a pretty rough ride.
I think Duncan's only question that he'd probably ask in this whole thing is, Fievel, let's imagine a world where you were going to inherit the flame helm and become the Lord of Magma. What would you do if you were the Lord?
Well, I don't know why we spend all this time making weapons when we could be making friends. I mean, look, I shovel poop well. No, I shovel poop very well. I am a smith of poop, and while I appreciate the fine weapons and armor we make, it seems to me the most valuable resource we're offering is helping people get rid of stuff they'd rather not have. And we're good at that, and it's safe and everyone likes it. But it's a dirty job and no one wants it. But I don't know, I guess I'd focus on that maybe and stop making things that hurt people.
Hear, hear.
Oh, my heart. That's just Laura. That's not Gwendolyn.
Fievel, I tell you now, you are wiser and braver than most lords I've ever met. And more importantly, you're a good man. And that's all too rare in this world. It is a pleasure to have met you.
Thank you for calling me a man. Most people call me boy and then kick me downstairs.
I don't think that's going to happen while I'm around, let me tell you.
Oh, well, thank you. Those words mean a lot to a humble poop smith. It is nice shooting the shit with you. Sorry, that's a little poop smith joke for you. Anyway, looks like the Lord is coming. I should go before he sees me and yells at me for sitting on his fancy furniture with my poop stink. Goodbye.
Young Fievel.
Yeah?
Before you leave, I would ask that you consider something.
Okay.
We came here from a place called Garbage Town, where two brothers rule as equals. And I would like you to think on why this place cannot be ruled by three.
Oh.
3 brothers.
I mean, that's a good point. I think that the short answer is there's only one flame helm, and without that, the magma can't be controlled. So people would have to be pretty good at sharing, and no one wants to share with me because because of the smell. But
It's a wonderful smell. It's the best smell here.
You're a very accomplished liar, sir, and I appreciate your conviction to the lie. But no, I know how I smell, and you get used to it.
You smell essential.
Hang on, I'm gonna roll a perception or an insight check for Fievel to see if he realizes you're telling the truth. Oh yeah, all right. I rolled a 16. He kind of looks at you, and it's weird because again, you're basically seeing like a beaten dog this whole time. But as you kind of talk to him about this, you see his eyes kind of grow a bit wider, and for a moment you can see that kind of regal bearing that Cinder has. And he just says, "Oh, you understand too.
Mm-hmm.
People like us are pretty rare, but also pretty special." And he pats you on the arm, and he looks at the mushrooms, and he just kind of leans in and smells slightly, and he goes, "Oh, perfection." And then he goes and he tries the door. He's like, "Oh, sorry, this door's locked. Anybody?" And then there's a thunderous slam as one of the door you came in flies open, and the golden figure of Lord Flicker enters.
Is Fievel injured? Is he hurt by this?
No, sorry.
It's
a different door. Fievel's... So basically,
okay.
Sorry, I should have described this better. Long rectangular room, 2 doors on either side of the rectangle that lead back out into the main facility, 2 doors at the back that lead off to the kitchens and everywhere else. So he was trying to go back the way he came in. And he quickly, opens the door and, slips out. He, grabs his key and jams it in and sneaks out. Just as Lord Flicker comes in. And Flicker's definitely got a bit of a Vader breathing problem. It sounds more closer to someone wearing an oxygen tank for diving. So it's kind of a constant that you can hear coming through his helmet. And he enters kind of with his arms raised to his sides with the flame kind of at shoulder level. With the flame kind of springing from both, and the flame flickering from the top of his head. He looks around and he says, "Greetings, friends from Orville. I am Lord Flicker, and welcome to my kingdom." And then he flicks his hands, and a number of small torches that are around the room light up, fire leaps from each one. And light up. The room is already pretty well lit, but now it's just fancier. And then he kind of pulls his hands together and snuffs the fire. And then he sort of looks around, still fire coming off his head, and says, "And pray tell, Princess of Orville, what have you come to discuss with me?" And then he looks around. He's like, "Wait, is the princess in the bathroom? Where is the princess?"
Duncan will circle around to stand just to the left of the princess. I'm imagining, Makka, are you on her right? Where are you in the room?
We were sitting with Fievel. I would have stood up to speak with Fievel and encourage him as I had. And he came in to embrace me, and so I probably would not have moved from there. So I'm at the table, basically standing at the table.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I would have stood when
the door burst
Flicker
open.
entered. Yeah, for sure.
And I think Duncan will just whisper in your ear and be like, "You know a lot, and he won't know how you know it. So you can play those cards however you please." And then I'll turn and say, "Lord Flicker, this is Princess Gwendolyn Kinsalaris, here inside the armor of Amala Kinsalaris, the founder of Orville and the realm of Byproduct."
You're right to a point. We recognize no sovereignty from Orville, as I told your King Vuldrin. Is he dead, I would have sent fire flowers. Those are flowers that are on fire.
Not the Mario power-up?
No.
Oh, okay.
His Majesty King Veldrin is indisposed.
Oh, a royal coup, was it? Well, bravo, and he claps, and, like, there's a burst of flame off his gauntlets, and he does, like, a sarcastic clap of fire. And he says, well done, princess. Well done.
And I think I'm just gonna go along with this because he seems pleased. So, and in the spirit of new rule, new beginnings, we have come to negotiate a new deal.
A new
with
deal,
your
you say.
fair kingdom.
Interesting.
My inner monologue was,
And what, pray tell, do you offer me? That I do not already have. Look at all my cool shit. And he, like, gestures out to the supervillain base.
Oh, cool. So Lord Flicker's like 15. Cool. Okay, got it.
I kind of like turn to Duncan because this is where like I'm feeling in over my head.
Great. So Duncan will lean forward with his hat
This
down
is my panic.
and do like very quiet whispering with the hat covering it, facing the other lord, and just say, right now, he's planning on invading everyone, which suggests he's not sure what's going on long term, and you know he's having trouble controlling his helm. You want to solve his problems, and then he'll help you solve yours.
Right.
If we don't know how to solve his problems, there's this thing called lying, where you say you can fix something, and then we figure out how to fix it afterwards, so no one sets us on fire. And sometimes that's necessary. Personally, I don't do it, because I'm a Dawnbreaker, and we have to be honest. You, however, are a ruler. Diplomacy has different rules.
My Lord Flicker, unlike my father before me, I am willing to come to a certain agreement with you and see that peace is maintained for all while everyone benefits. No compromise, as it were.
I
A win-win-win.
do hate compromise.
Indeed. Don't we all?
So, I have told you Orville will no longer receive armaments from the Magma Lord. What would you ask instead?
With no more armaments going to Orville, surely it will have reduced the load on your great fire pond.
Disagree, but go on.
And why, pray tell, would you disagree?
You can see he's, this is clearly something that he's concerned about, but also that he doesn't quite want to let on.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, as you say that, you can actually see the fire on his helm begin to lower a little bit. And then his head kind of violently jerks to the left, and you see him stumble a bit. And he sort of steadies himself on one of the couches and then rises back up and he says, "No concern of yours, merely a concern of mine." What?
My lord, you seem to be having some difficulty.
You can see fire begin to start sparking in his hands again. "There is no difficulty or weakness in the Magma Lord."
My lord, you stumbled.
Don't we all sometimes stumble? I just controlled liquid hot magma. It is difficult.
And are you saying you're not up to the task?
More so than in a haunted suit of armor, a weird giant turtle, and whoever the fuck this chuckle fuck is.
Indeed, but controlling the flames is not our place. It is not our duty. It is yours.
Indeed.
And you, sir, are losing control.
He looks at you and like you can kind of like barely see his eyes through the slit, but you can see just unbridled fury there. And he says, "We shall see." And with kind of a mighty roar, you look kind of in horror to the fire pond and see just a giant fist of molten lava come flying out of it at the view screen at the viewport of the office. And we'll pause there and then roll initiative.
Hi, I'm Ryan LaPlante, and I'm one of the crazy founders of Dumb Dumbs and Dice, the production company that's made the video you're watching or the podcast you're listening to right now. Now, we're clearly busy. We're producing 5 weekly podcasts, a 6th event podcast, video event one-shots, and an additional video D&D campaign. But we want to take this time to invite you to become a part of our company and a part of our Patreon at patreon.com/dumbdumbdice. You can get access to our Discord, access to exclusive DM and character chats. You can get the chance to name characters in our shows and vote on the way their stories will progress. You can even become a recurring NPC and hear yourself interacting with our characters each week through the voice of Tom. You can become a patron for as little as $1, and there's great value for you at even that level. So please, join the Dumb Dumbs and Dice family and help us make even more content in a way that you are guaranteed to love. That's patreon.com/dumbdumbdice. DUMBDICE. So let's do something dumb together, and thanks for being part of our stories.
All right. So as the magma fist flies towards the sort of bay window viewing the floor below, all of you please roll me initiative.
Okay. 1.
I was gonna say another 20.
Use them all up on the social encounter.
Yeah.
14 for Makka.
And a dirty 20 for Duncan Danno.
All right, and right. Cool. So Duncan, you're up first. You have a split second as the fist kind of swells towards the glass to do something. What do you do?
Great. I want to raise my pistol that has been pumped full of the special ammo that I picked up in the crypt because it's extra dry here in the mountain. So I will use my ammo hold, and I want to fire at the Lord of the Flame here. The Lord of the Dance keeps getting stuck in my head. All right. So that is a 20 to hit.
That will hit.
Great. And Tom, I would like to use a swashing point with a twist here. For a swashing point, I can attempt to disarm somebody. I would like to try to blow his helmet off, if possible.
Ooh.
Okay.
You can say no. This is a stretch, but I just wanted to see if I could.
I'm inclined to try and limit your swashing points to sword-based things, except disarming does make sense with a pistol.
Because it says weapon attack in the rules, but it's also homebrew, so we can play it however we want. If I couldn't disarm him with the pistol, then I would have gone with the sword, but it doesn't matter. Who cares? Yeah.
I'll give it to you. You're not going to knock his helmet off. I'm going to say there are sort of.
It's also not an auto win. He has to roll a save.
Cool. Regardless, I'm going to say you can see there are 3 points of connection where he's like strapped the helmet to the rest of his gear to create a seal. If you're successful, you'll blow one of those seals.
Cool. All right. So he has to roll a strength save with the DC of my attack roll. So DC 20.
Does a 5 beat 20? I'm bad at math.
I mean, spiritually it puts up a good fight, but I think no.
Great. So the blast pings off his helmet and wrenches it violently, so much so that you can see one of the straps break. And you see the magma fist falter, and it begins to. You can see parts of it begin to fall off, and you can hear kind of screams from below. But it seems it went from like full on like Sandman, Spider-Man 3, like I can make giant fists, to like starting to crumble. It's still headed at the window, but it looks less room-filly now, which is probably good. Next up, Makka.
Things are really kicking off, huh?
Flame
so
on.
Yeah, you see the bullet hit his helm and the magma fist falter. That's all you've got to glance for.
I was selfishly going to do shell defense and just turtle up for this lava fist, but seeing that attacking the helmet seems to affect the fist, I'll cast Shillelagh as a bonus action. Thorns explode out of my wooden mace, and I'll try and run up on this guy and just swing up at his head.
Okay. So go ahead and roll your attack.
So that's an 18 to hit.
Yep, that hits.
7 damage.
Okay. So you smash him squarely in the helm. You see him stumble a bit, but the clasps remain tight, and the fist is still coming.
Yep.
Which brings us to his turn. He kind of glowers at you, and he says, "Oh, you want to rumble, Turtle Man? Well then," and he like puts one hand out, flicks the fire on. He's like, "Be our guest!" And he blasts you with fire out of both of his hands in a cone of flame. So you need to roll me a dex save, please.
Oh, that's my best save.
I figured it might be.
It's not. It's really not.
Oh no.
That's a 16.
Unfortunately, not enough. So that will be... Oh, I rolled like shit, so you're still pretty okay. 6 points of damage as the wave of fire hits you. And then the magma fist smashes into the glass. So because the fist was reduced, and the glass is built of that same kind of shimmering fire repellent stuff, it does smash through and flood the room, but it's not like magma just fell on you. It's instead just like incredibly hot spray. But between the interruption and the glass, it has been the effect have been quite reduced. Everybody, please roll me a dex save to leap out of the way.
11 for Makka.
Yep.
13.
Okay.
21 for Duncan.
21. All right, so
Dex is my wheelhouse, baby.
Gwendolyn and Makka, you will take 12 points of fire damage. And Duncan, you'll take 6.
Cool. I'm imagining Duncan when he sees it about to hit, because there's actually swashbuckling bonuses to, like, you have advantage on dex saves against dangers you know are coming. So I'm picturing just as it breaks for him, he actually does like a spinning jump in the air and rotates himself so it's just his head kind of facing directly towards the window, and he's swirling the cape above himself. So he can't stop it, but he just made himself small, so he got hit with less.
Yeah, so you flick away, like it singes your cape, but you managed to like flick the worst of it off. Now we're on to Gwen with your 1.
All right. So, my Lord Flicker, why do you attack? This is completely irrational. We come here to help. We come here to forge a deal, and you strike out. And I will. Is he close? Like, he's still in the room.
He's engaged in
like,
close combat with Makka.
Okay. Then I'm just gonna rush him with my greatsword, and just like and I would have seen Duncan go for the helm.
Yes.
Go for the strap. Yeah. So I'm gonna try to go for one of the others.
Okay, great. So then you're rolling to attack the strap, not him.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give you disadvantage because you're aiming for a tiny target.
Okay.
But go ahead and roll your attack.
Oh, not too bad. 16 to hit.
Okay, yeah, that will hit. Go ahead and roll your damage. There's a number you need to beat in order to break the strap.
Gotcha. Ugh. 6.
Unfortunately, similar to Makka's strike, Your sword damages him, so I'll still give you the damage to him, but his helmet remains squarely in place.
Okay. And then I'm not going to forget to use my bonus action because I wrote it in huge block letters on my sheet. And I will have the sword come back on... basically, I can release it from my hands as I go to swing, like after the swing, and it will come back and go for the neck again.
Okay.
The strap.
So it's charge one way, release, and it boomerangs back around.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Throw the hammer left and then just hold your hand up. Great.
Yeah, exactly. So you want disadvantage on that one as well?
If you're going for straps, still yes.
Yeah.
You're just at regular if you're attacking him, but if you're going for the
shit.
straps, it's less.
Yeah, and I was going for strap 7.
No, unfortunately, no dice.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
So having seen the strike, he just raises one of his gauntlets and just like knocks the sword aside. You manage to catch it out of the air, and then you drop into a fighting stance. Top of the round, Duncan.
All right, so Duncan's got to dive forward and get involved here because he really doesn't like magma as a threat to armor because that's a clear threat to the princess, whereas most other things can be lightly ignored. So I think he's going to dash forwards and then kind of essentially roll behind the Lord to strike as he's swinging at kind of the front, if he can. So, I mean, I don't know if there's advantage to flanking with 3 of us fighting one guy.
Now that there's 3 of you, yes. I wasn't going to give it to you for 2 because it was kind of like both frontal, but now that there's enough, you're all acting at advantage.
Perfect. So I'm going to come at him from behind then with the rapier. And that is some bullshit. That was a grand total of 6. So nothing from this. Just slashes under the cape. But you know what? He appreciates where a good cape comes from. And the problem with capes is they don't show you where the armor parts are.
Yeah. So dings off of him, but a fair strike, but no dice.
No, wait. I had advantage, right?
Yes.
Oh, I'm dumb then. No, man, it's good. 23. So I ding, and then again.
Wait, sorry, were you going for a strap or were you going for him?
I was going for him. There's no more fucking around
then that'll hit.
For him anymore. Yeah, all right. So, I mean, the joy of it... No, I'm just going to stab him because he's a dig. Yeah, we'll just go for the regular damage this time. No swashing points. I'm imagining I can't disarm his helmet from behind again.
No.
All right. That is 5 piercing damage.
Okay. He kind of drops almost to one knee and then kind of forces his way up and shrugs the blade off his shoulder. Brings us to Makka.
All right. I took a bit of damage there. Makka's not looking good, so I'm going to spend a wild shape to activate symbiotic entity.
Cool.
So the spores shake out from me, and they immediately give me 15 health points, temporary HP.
I like to imagine one of them nudges a mushroom into your mouth.
No. But that is an action, so for my bonus, it will just have to be, I think, casting Healing Word at 2nd level on myself.
Dude, that's awesome.
For 2d4 healing of my regular HP. Only 3 points, but everything counts.
Cool. All right, that brings us to Flicker. He's not looking great.
Okay. So at the start of his turn, now that my Halo of Spores is active, he's going to take...
Oh, shit.
Some necrotic damage, 2d4 necrotic damage because I have symbiotic entity active.
Does he get a con save, Tyler?
Unless it's the way it's worded, it's like 1d4 damage unless a con save is made. So my bad. So yes, he has to roll Constitution first.
I rolled a 6,
doesn't beat.
so you're good.
Okay.
Well, I rolled a 4. I think it's good.
So that was a 1, and there's a 4. So that's 5 necrotic damage.
Cool. Very cool.
To him.
So you can see the spores kind of like filtering in through the gap that Ryan made in the helmet from breaking the strap, and like you see him just kind of shake his head a bit and stumble as he takes a little bit of damage. And then he just kind of, with all of you around him, like touches both his flame hands to his head, and just yells, "To me, my magman!" And he punches the floor.
Magmen!
Setting off a small explosion around him. So if all of you could please roll me a con save.
Now we're talking. 16.
18.
It's a nat 1.
Okay. So for Gwendolyn and Makka, you'll take 4 points of damage. Duncan, you're going to take 8, and because you failed, I'm going to say your cape sets on fire. You'll take D4, so an additional 2 from it this turn, and if you don't put it out, you're going to continue to take fire damage, and the cape will slowly burn away.
Not his swashing cape.
And as he hits the floor and yells this, there's an explosion around him, and then all of a sudden you see all of the torches that he lit, the flames leap off of them, and slowly grow into 6 angry-looking magmen. Which are like little squat, monsters with kind of like roundish faces, kind of horns. Their skin is kind of cracked magma, and they go, protect the Lord Flicker! And they will enter the initiative order, which incidentally is them, because Laura rolled real bad. So the first 2, the magmen all start running in because they're punchy guys. So we're going to say 3 on Makka, 3 on Gwendolyn. They actually can't reach Ryan because he's behind. Like, Flicker's basically in the door, like close to the door. Ryan's behind him, and then the 2 of you are kind of more central in the room. So that's 3 on each of you, and they're going to try and punch you with their little flame fists. So Makka, what is your AC?
19.
All right. So 2 of them fail to hit, but 1 gets a crit.
Okay.
So that is 7 points of damage as you just feel like tiny hands grab your leg and your leg begins to sizzle and burn. And then Gwendolyn, your AC is 19? 20?
20.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm going to use a reaction to reduce the result of one of them, the die rolls by 1.
Cool. One of them only made it by 1, so we'll say it's that one.
Yes!
So they're just like, tink, 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 tink.
And my willpower is just so strong that they don't
And you
hit.
like shake your leg a little bit and one of them falls over.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, boss, the metal one is tarred. And that brings us to to Gwendolyn. I was going to say top of the round. Bottom of the round, Gwendolyn.
I think I really need to go for the helmet because that seems to be how he's like conjuring up these magmen pieces of crap. So I'm still engaged with him. Yes?
Yep. You're at close range.
Yep. So let's just try once again, just like coming from the side and sweeping down right onto his neck where the strap is. Oh, disadvantage, right?
That is correct. But you...
Oh, bloody hell.
For what it's worth, you also have advantage, so it cancels out. Because everyone's flanking now, so we'll say that that gives you enough time that rather than just having to like swing in the heat of it, you're able to kind of like track and then strike.
Okay, so I'll take that first roll then. Okay, so that's a 19.
Sounds better than your second roll. Okay, great. Go ahead and roll your damage.
All right. And that's a 9.
9, that is enough.
Yes!
You need an 8 or higher. So you slash into the second strap, and it snaps in half, and you can see the helm start to like actively kind of swim on his head. But also it begins to tremble a bit, and you start to see steam begin to rise out from under it.
Okay, well let's use my bonus action then to have that lovely sword swing right around on its own again, and try to go for the third and final strap. And that's a nat 20.
Whoa! Laura is rolling like a fucking boss this session.
Yeah, except for when I roll ones.
Damn, son. All right, go ahead and roll your damage.
All right. That's 18. 18 slashing damage.
Here's a question for you, Laura. 2 questions for you. One, is your intent to bring him in alive, or do you care at this point?
I don't want to kill him.
Okay.
Yeah.
2.
Because I still want to yell at him, like.
Can you throw?
You will.
Can you throw me a wisdom save?
I can throw you a wisdom save.
You gotta figure out how much control you actually have over the magical flying sword at this point in your life.
7.
Okay. I'm going to. I'll give you a devil's bargain.
Shit.
You can only hit the strap, but the sword will carry on past him, and Ryan will have to. You'll have to roll an attack against Duncan, or you can take the strap and his head comes off. This is you desperately trying to force control the blade.
Yeah. I can't risk Duncan. I can't risk family. So. Whoops.
The blade.
We all make mistakes.
The blade cleaves cleanly through his neck, and his body slumps and falls backward. The helmet falls off and rolls away. And the magmen, their eyes go wide, and they go, "Oh shit!" and they burst. So I need dex saves, please, from Makka and from Gwendolyn. Duncan, you're out of the line of fire on this because you're behind the headless corpse.
Good. I'm frantically putting out my cape now that all the bad guys are exploding.
Yep.
10.
10?
Yep.
Laura?
This is a dex save? 12.
12. Okay, so Laura, you're in the clear. So when the blade comes through, as you hear them burst, I think you just kind of drop and put your arm up to catch most of it. Unfortunately, Makka, you're being held and under heavy attack, so you're going to take the full brunt of it. So that is 10 points of fire damage from the exploding magman.
Oh dear.
As you kind of take a moment, Duncan stomps out his cape. You look to see the helmet continue to sort of shake and tremble, and you can see that the metal of it is beginning to glow with heat, and the fire above it is beginning to glow brighter and brighter, and you can smell the sizzle of flesh from within. What do you do?
So his head is still in the helmet? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, it is cooking in the helmet currently. It's a real Django Fett situation.
Yeah, I think I'll take out one of my daggers and I'll turn to Makka and just say, grab a key off his body and lock the door. And I want to take a dagger to just get the helmet off of his head, so I don't have to touch it, but dagger tip, lift it away.
Cool. Can you roll me a perception check, please?
It's an 11.
11. You can see a ball of flame inside. You flick the head out, and then inside you can see a ball of flame just sort of swirling in the center. And you can almost hear it say, finally.
Okay, we might need to put this helmet on someone real fast, but I also don't know if it'll kill them.
Can you put a helm on a helm?
You cannot.
Well, I'm out.
You hear a knock at the door, and you see Fievel just peek around. I heard screaming. Are you guys okay? Do you need more? Oh my God, what's that?
Fievel, this is your chance. Can you make this place better?
I mean, does it involve poop shoveling? Because if the answer is yes, then yes.
It involves so much poop shoveling. All the poop shoveling you could enjoy.
Then I'm your fucking Huckleberry. And he runs out and he grabs the helmet and he's like, here's hoping I can control bound fire demons. And then he stuffs it over his head. And like in The Mask, he just like recoils back, holding his head and screaming. And he sort of stumbles, he falls over the couch. He comes up, and you can see steam coming off, out from under his helmet. And his hands are shaking, his legs are shaking, and he's got like Bambi knees. And you realize he needs some encouragement. He's never been encouraged in his life, and this is do or die. How do you try to inspire Fievel the Poop Smith to overcome the fire demon in his head?
Makka, you have the most wisdom.
That's using your counsel to its full effect.
Yeah. Let's see here.
Young Fievel, as a fellow steward of the decomposing and the waste, I know that you have a strong temperament. You have a will. Listen to me, Fievel. Listen. There is a strength, a noble strength within you. Others do not see it. They think of your role as lowly. But you and I know that's not true. It is part of a vital process. One which cannot be left by the wayside. One which a leader would recognize the value of. Your father opted to forge weapons of war on a path of conquest. Many would die this way, but your way, the way of life, the way of passing things on, the cycle, this is the way you guarantee life, promote prosperity. You can do this, Fievel. You were meant for this.
And he puts hands on both of your shoulders, and with like the trembling helmet nods, and then he just goes, ah! And he's like, listen up, you fiery piece of shit! We have a job to do, and you're gonna help me do it, or so help me God, I'm gonna jump in the lake with you on me, and we'll both die. So he's like, so let's get to shoveling shit, because that's what we do here. And the helmet trembles and trembles and trembles, and then slows and slows and slows. He's like, okay, I'm glad we reached an agreement. Cool. And then he gives a thumbs up to his own face. He's like, I don't know if you can see or not, but good work. And then with still as kind of like a weird gangly dude, he kind of looks at you, Makka, and he says, thank you for the wise words. I think the thing inside my head understands too. I think it was just mad that we were doing things that it thought were kind of beneath it, but helping continue the cycle of life and death and rebirth. That sounds pretty good, even to a fire demon.
Those who act in the interest of harmony are often lifted up by others.
Aw, thank you, and thank both of you. Oh wow, my dad is headless. Okay, can't say I'm sad to see him go, but let's see, where's that thing he always talked about? And he like reaches into his dad's like spandex jumpsuit, and pulls out the amulet, and he's like, I'm supposed to wear this. It's super important. Apparently, it's real bad news if it falls into someone else's hands. And he goes to put it on.
Fievel, you must understand that your strength, your power, your influence does not come from an amulet. And the more you rely on that, the more power it has over you, and the weaker you will become.
Wait, you mean I'll become like the fire demon that we bound to this helm to let us control the magma?
No, you'll become weak like your father.
Oh, I hate that.
Exactly. You don't need this amulet. But I have to say, we are on a new quest. One to gain an army, to retake Orwell and rule it anew with a new relationship with our partners in the Byproduct, and rule with compromise and diplomacy and not fighting all the time. So in order to do that, we do need to borrow the amulet for just a short while. We ask you humbly, Magma Lord Fievel.
Oh,
To sum it
boy.
up, I was gonna say, to summate a bit of that without the us and the fancy language, because I've just seen Fievel's eyes glaze over in panic and confusion. And just be like, the kingdom of Orville would like to count the Fire Realm as both a vassal and a friend. As a sign of that friendship between you and us, would you be willing to lend us that amulet so we can bring back the kingdom that has fueled this realm, and we can bring a brighter and friendlier tomorrow?
I will on two conditions. One, I think we poop smiths deserve a seat at the table. As I understand it from hearing my dad talk, you have a hierarchical council of some sort where people who do jobs are represented, and I think poop smiths should be represented there. So that's demand number one. Demand number two. I think I'm kind of done with the whole vassal thing, but maybe we could be partners, and I respect you and everything, and I like that, but honestly, Orville has literally shit on us forever, so we'd rather be partners with you and work with you. I don't know if that's what vassal means, but I don't want to bend a knee. I bow to too many people, and now I think it's time to stand shoulder to shoulder with people, you know?
Lord Fievel, from now on, we will shit with you, not upon you.
Laura, I'm giving you 1 point of inspiration for the best inspirational speech I've ever seen.
Oh, yeah. You're getting the hang of this.
And that, my friends, is how the crowning of the very first Poop Lord was accomplished. Fievel hands over the amulet, the piece of the amulet, and is very content to send you back to the people of Garbage Town with that. He also offers let's say Duncan. He's like, pardon me, Mr. Swashbuckleman. I noticed that your super nifty cape got lit on fire just now, and that's not fun for anyone. I know. I've been lit on fire more times than I can count. Here, we use this down here to like stop that a little bit, and maybe it'll help you too. And basically, he gets a small pot of like it's almost like an unguent, and he takes it out and he rubs it into your cape. And basically, what it'll do is give you advantage on the first save against fire you need to make in any given situation. So if you're fighting a fire mage and he's throwing fire at you constantly, it only works on the first go, but it'll give you some modicum of protection against that first.
So kind of like once per long rest kind of thing, or just once and then it's back to normal?
Yeah, once per long rest.
Cool.
Yeah. Because basically what I'm trying to go for is like, it won't stop the fire, but it'll at least prevent a little bit of it.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you, Lord Fievel, friend of the Dawnbreakers.
And then he turns to you, Makka, and he's like, and I'll miss you most of all, Makka. Deathcap. I don't have much to give you, but here, this, maybe take this. And he gives you a small jar that he has, and inside that jar there is a single mushroom. And he's like, this is the only thing I've ever managed to grow down here. I named him Charlie, but I think maybe he should travel with you now as a reminder that you once helped a lowly poop smith become a poop lord, as well as helping bring peace to a kingdom. So, Charlie, this is your new friend Makka. He's pretty good.
I'll open the jar and I'll scoop in for the mushroom and I'll say,
Hello, Charlie.
and I'll place him amongst the cluster of mushrooms on my shoulder, feeding back into my shell, and I'll say,
In this way I will carry him with me always. And if I may ask something in return, Lord Fievel,
Of course.
I think Charlie would like to come back from time to time and visit you
That
and the shit you shovel.
that would be swell. I'm gonna try and start a whole mushroom garden down here. We'll see how that works. But first, we gotta get the shit flowing again.
I like this guy.
So
And I only have one question for you, Fievel, before
Yeah?
we go. And he's like burnt and a little bit cut up and just like having a shitty day. And he's like, which one of your brothers is the bad one? Because I
Oh.
want to have words with them before we leave.
Me too. So he marches you past Ash, and he goes and finds Cinder, who's like, "Oh, why is Fievel wearing the Helm of Flame? What did you do?" And then like his face darkens, and he's like, "What did you do?"
The Flame Lord is dead. Long live the Poop Lord.
And then he will yell, "To me, my magmen!" And all of a sudden, all of the torches in the room leap off the torches, and they land on Cinder, who begins to just scream as he melts away. And the Poopsmith stands over him, looking down imperiously, and says, yeah! Justice smells good! And with that, Cinder burns until his name is more appropriate.
Makka looks
Oh.
at Gwendolyn and Duncan with eyes of like,
Did we just make a horrible mistake?
I think one of the things we may need to do with the new council is just nail down the collective rule of laws. Everywhere we're going here seems to have a lot of the death penalty and not a lot of anything else.
I think I would like to make it clear that the death of Lord Flicker was not my intention. Throughout this kingdom, we will always rule with negotiation and talk first, and not use combat unless there's no other choice, but only as a last resort.
Cool, yeah. I also didn't mean to kill him. I just told my magman to jump on him, and what do you know? He died. Guess it's kind of like decapitating someone by accident, you know? Sometimes these things happen.
Cinder? Oh, no, you're not Cinder. Sorry.
Cinder's dead.
Fievel.
I know. My Lord Fievel.
Mm-hmm.
And do remember that what has been given can also be taken
Cool,
away.
that applies to the amulet too. So maybe let's all just be friends about this. He beat me very badly my whole life. I think this was kind of all right. I know you can't understand having a brother who like tries to kill you all the time, but that's been my experience, and it's not been very good.
Well,
Also, Your Highness, I hate to interrupt with a point, but you did agree to being partners, which means you no longer rule the fire/poop realm.
damn
They're
skibby.
an ally.
Yeah.
So you
Anyway,
can't make commands here.
But it's fine.
not a command, just recommendation for how to proceed in friendship
I'll take it under
and
advisement.
civility.
Now, if you'll excuse me, there are some other people here I would like to have words with. All right, have a good day. And with that, the doors to the kingdom of the Poopsmith close behind you. But you leave knowing that at the very least you have prevented a tyrant from rising up to try and seize control of the land. You can see as you go to leave the carts from Garbage Town coming in and out and beginning the processing once again. So you return to Garbage Town, and Tyne and Ryler are very thrilled to see you. They both they've got the dragon ready to go. They're like, all right, so where is he? We're gonna parade him through downtown. It's gonna be great.
Ooh.
The Flame Lord is dead. Long live the Poop Lord.
Okay, that's pretty funny. I think that's also fine. But is the waste being processed now?
The gates of the fire pond are open once again.
All right
and
then.
The waste flows.
Great. So we're gonna do a quick roundtable rescore on you guys, and on a scale of 0, we shouldn't have given you this job, and 10, we definitely should have. You get a solid 8. So congratulations, guys. We owe you one. Thank you for getting things flowing again. I gotta tell you, it was gonna get real stanky here real soon. We live in a heap of garbage, so that's really saying something. And the two brothers kind of look at each other and nod, and then they each take out an eighth of an amulet, and they stick them together to make a quarter of the amulet. And then they hand it to you, and they're like, okay, just remember, you didn't get this from us, and if anyone asks, we still have it, because it's kind of how we control things around here.
I believe there may be some new terms you need to discuss with Princess Gwendolyn. The Poopsmith, Lord of Poop, has agreed to these terms of partnership. I believe this is something that needs to be discussed here in Garbage Town as well.
They do a combined double, like, to look at you, Gwendolyn.
I know our relationship with Orville has been a bit trying at times, but I would like to forge a new future that looks to the past and the way that Amala saw us living together as partners, and we'd like to give you a seat at the table once we retake Orville. And now, my dear Duncan will paraphrase in a much more succinct way.
Just a moment, gentlemen. And I circle back to her and I'm like, just to be clear, are you saying that they're still going to be vassals to Orville but have a space? Or is this the same deal as with the Poop Lord where they get their own nation and then you're friends?
Yeah, but we're still gonna meet up and
No, but I just gave you 2 options and you just said, yeah, I need clarity on the deal.
Yeah, no, it's their own nation, but I want them to be clear that we're still all going to be partners working together and all equal at the table, but still going to come to the table together and them not just be off on their own doing their own thing because we all have to work together.
All right, this makes sense. And I normally would tell you to take more time with this, but I'm going to need a name for the new group. What is the name of this Alliance of Realms?
The new alliance.
Makka, do you have any notes on that you want to give advice from Tortles or how it might affect the rest of Gren? Are there any problems? Are there groups named that already?
Not that I'm aware of.
Oh, the Alliance of Equals.
That does sound quite appropriate, given what you are proposing.
And it seems to be a little more declarative of the goals than just being new, so I think you've got a good name there, Princess.
It also frees up space for any new alliances to call themselves the New Alliance.
Yeah, otherwise you'd have to decide when it was the old alliance. How many years go before that happens? Alright, so, Twin Lords of Garbage Town, Princess Gwendolyn of Orville has begun an alliance of equality, of separate realms that have come together in the hands of friendship and equality and communication to build a brighter future. And she would like to offer you a position within this alliance.
They look at each other, they look back at you, they smile, and they say, Garbage Town in.
Why do I love all of this so much?
And with that,
Every time it hits so hard for me.
thanks, buddy. With that, the three of you leave with 2 new alliances secured, the Alliance of Equality well underway, and you have a choice before you. You stand at a crossroads. In one direction, the massive, whimsical factory of the Liquid Lord. In another direction, the massive farming and massive farm facility of the Butcher. Which way do you go?
Makka, this past experience has been the most hard on you. Which would you prefer?
Both sound as though they would be vastly superior than the harsh environment of the fire pond. As humans and denizens of Orville, are you familiar at all with either of these locations?
This is truly all new revelations.
Our experience was limited to the sky, but from what I know, names have great significance, and someone who rules under the name The Butcher would be a threat to any alliance of equals or any alliance of friendship, for that name has few positive connotations.
Give me a moment to consult the cluster.
And I just want to close my eyes for a moment and listen to the chorus of voices that is the cluster of fungus and molds and nature.
You get, you actually have 2 distinctly different feelings. The feeling you get from the direction of the Liquid Lord is, it's odd, it's almost buzzing with excitement from sort of the fungal entities you can sense from that direction. From the Butcher, you sense not joy per se, but the cycle in full motion. But there does seem to be something a little off about it. You'll ultimately have to go to both locations. It's just a matter of which one you choose to tackle first.
The cycle is strong with the Butcher, but unusual somehow. I cannot say in what way. And there is some sense of anticipation at the...
Sorry, what was it called? The water...
The Liquid Lord.
There's a sense of anticipation coming from the Liquid Lord. Perhaps an anticipation of our arrival. Perhaps.
Well, do you want to solve a problem, or do you want to be welcome to somewhere that might be a break from the plague and bleak, hot aspect of our last place of business?
Is that a question for Makka or for Gwendolyn?
For Makka, I would assume.
Okay. Makka will consider this and say,
I believe this anticipation should be addressed to ensure that we are not late for an expected event.
Princess?
I will trust Makka's instincts on this.
Then off we go to the Liquid Lord.
And with that, you pack up your meager belongings and set out on the long road to meet the Liquid Lord.
This episode of Curse, Code, and Crown was edited by Ryan LaPlante, and the campaign was created by Tom McGee. Our original theme music was composed by Landon Knoblock, and all of Dum Dums and Dice's art is created by the brilliant Decapitated Markers. If you want to follow our players or our DM on Twitter, you can reach out to Laura at EL Hamstring, Ryan at the Ryan LaPlante, Tyler at Tyler_Hewitt, Tom McGee at McGeeTD, or you can message our whole company at Dum Dum Dice. So please, join us again for more Curse, Code, and Crown!
Dum-Dums and Dice has to give a special thank you to the supreme beings of our Patreon at this time. Christian Menicola, Long, The Half-Blind Prophet, James Cuellar, DM Rob, Christopher Little, Joshua White, Olin Anderson, Sue One, and Jill and Noel LaPlante. If you want your name to be added to this list, you can join our Patreon too at patreon.com/dumdumdice. Thanks to them, and a little bit of thanks to you.